Ever watch someone effortlessly connect with strangers while you struggled for words? The audiobook, Talk to Anyone, 27 Ways to Master Every Conversation, reveals the hidden psychology behind magnetic communication. Transform awkward exchanges into meaningful connections that open doors in every area of your life. Without these skills, you'll continue missing opportunities others seem to attract effortlessly, from career advancements to deep personal relationships. The difference between feeling invisible and becoming unforgettable lies within these pages. Before we go on, I invite you to download a free PDF containing an executive summary of each chapter, along with a list of key ideas and takeaways. Studies show that engaging with content through multiple formats significantly enhances learning and retention. Click the first link in the description to claim your free executive summary and maximize your learning potential. It's free for now, but it won't be forever, so make sure to grab it while you can. Chapter 1, First Impressions. 7 seconds. That's all it takes for someone to form a judgment about you when you meet for the first time. In those brief moments, before you've even had a chance to share your thoughts, your experiences, or your personality, the other person has already begun constructing a mental image of who you are. This snap judgment will color everything else they learn about you moving forward. Intimidating? Perhaps, but here's the good news. You have the power to shape that first impression. Think about the last time you met someone who immediately made you feel comfortable. What was it about them? Chances are they smiled warmly, maintained friendly eye contact, and greeted you with genuine interest. They probably stood with confidence, offered a firm handshake, and asked you a question that made you feel valued. These weren't random behaviors. They were the building blocks of a positive first impression. The science behind first impressions is fascinating. Psychologists call it the primacy effect, our tendency to remember and be influenced by what we notice first about a person. Once formed, these initial judgments create a halo effect that can influence how we interpret everything else about that person. If our first impression is positive, we're more likely to view their subsequent actions in a favorable light. If negative, we might unconsciously look for evidence to confirm our initial dislike. This is why mastering the art of first impressions isn't just about social niceties. It's about creating a foundation for meaningful connection. When you start on the right foot, you open the door to deeper conversation, trust, and rapport. Let's explore how to make those crucial first moments count. Warm body language. Your body speaks volumes before you say a single word. When you meet someone new, your physical presence immediately signals whether you're approachable, confident, and engaged, or distant, insecure, and uninterested. Start with your smile. A genuine smile, one that reaches your eyes, is your most powerful tool for creating instant warmth. Research shows that smiling activates the reward centers in the observer's brain, making them feel good in your presence. But authenticity matters. A forced smile, one that only involves your mouth, can actually backfire, making you appear insincere. Instead, think of something that genuinely pleases you as you greet the other person, allowing natural warmth to show on your face. Eye contact is equally important. Looking someone in the eyes says, "I see you. You have my attention." Aim to meet their gaze when you first greet them and maintain that connection intermittently throughout your conversation. The key word is intermittently. Staring unblinkingly will make most people uncomfortable. Instead, hold eye contact for a few seconds at a time, especially when either of you is speaking. This creates a rhythm of connection that feels natural and engaged. Your posture speaks to your confidence and openness. Turn your body toward the person you're meeting, keeping your shoulders back and your stance relaxed. Avoid crossing your arms, which can signal defensiveness or disinterest. Instead, keep your arms relaxed at your sides or use them naturally as you speak. Leaning slightly toward the other person shows interest without invading their personal space. Pay attention to tension in your body. When we're nervous, we often hold stress in our shoulders, face, or hands, fidgeting, clenching our jaw, or hunching forward. Take a slow, deep breath before entering a social situation to release some of that tension. If you feel anxiety rising during the interaction, another discreet deep breath can help steady your nerves and relax your physical presence. Remember, your body language isn't just communicating to the other person, it's communicating to your own brain as well. Research has shown that adopting confident, open postures actually changes your body chemistry, reducing stress hormones and increasing feelings of power and confidence. By consciously adjusting your physical presence, you not only appear more confident to others, but begin to feel more confident yourself. Confident introduction. With your body language projecting warmth and openness, the next critical element is how you verbally introduce yourself. This is your opportunity to establish yourself as someone worth knowing. Begin with a clear, friendly greeting. Hello or hi, paired with "it's nice to meet you," creates an immediate positive tone. Then state your name clearly and at a moderate pace. Many people rush through their name when nervous, making it difficult for others to catch or remember it. Instead, say your name with confidence, giving it the importance it deserves. When the other person introduces themselves, make a point of repeating their name. "Great to meet you, Michael." This serves two purposes. It helps cement their name in your memory, and it shows them that you're paying attention. People love hearing their own name. It signals recognition and respect. Your tone of voice carries significant weight in these opening moments. Speak with warmth and energy, avoiding a monotone or mumbled delivery. Even a simple greeting can sound dismissive if delivered flatly, or welcoming if infused with genuine enthusiasm. The goal is to sound pleased to be meeting this person, because ideally, you are. In many professional and social contexts, a handshake remains the standard physical greeting, though cultural norms vary, and it's always wise to follow the other person's lead. The perfect handshake strikes a balance, firm enough to convey confidence, but not so strong that it's uncomfortable. Make web-to-web contact, where the skin between your thumb and index finger meets theirs. Offer moderate pressure and give 2 to 3 gentle shakes while maintaining eye contact and smiling. Avoid the extremes that leave negative impressions. The limp fish handshake that suggests timidity or disinterest, or the bone crusher that comes across as aggressive or domineering. After a brief moment of connection, about 2 to 3 seconds, release naturally and smoothly. If you're in a culture or context where handshakes aren't the norm, observe and mirror the common greeting, whether it's a bow, a nod, or another gesture. The key is to show respect for the cultural context while still projecting confidence and warmth. Remember that your introduction is setting the tone for everything that follows. By greeting someone with clarity, warmth, and confidence, you signal that you're someone worth talking to, someone who values connection and brings positive energy to an interaction. Positive opener. With the initial greeting established, your next move is to transition into actual conversation. This is where many people falter, unsure of what to say after "nice to meet you." The key is to create an opening that invites engagement without pressure. One effective approach is to offer a genuine compliment or positive observation. The emphasis here is on genuine. People have remarkable radar for detecting insincerity. Look for something specific and authentic that you can comment on. "That was a great point you made during the presentation," or "I love the energy in this venue." When complimenting someone directly, focus on choices they've made rather than innate characteristics. "Your jacket is fantastic," or "that was a thoughtful question you asked earlier," acknowledges something they've chosen or done, rather than something they simply are. This feels more meaningful because it recognizes their agency and judgment. Keep your opening comment light and positive. This isn't the moment for deep philosophical questions or controversial topics. The goal is to create a comfortable atmosphere where conversation can begin to flow naturally. Following your positive comment, transition to an open-ended question that invites the other person to share something about themselves. "What brings you to this event?" or "How do you know the host?" gives them an easy entry point into the conversation. Unlike closed questions that can be answered with a simple yes or no, open-ended questions invite elaboration and show that you're interested in more than a superficial exchange. As they respond, practice active listening. Maintain that friendly eye contact, nod to show understanding, and resist the urge to interrupt or immediately shift the focus back to yourself. When they finish speaking, you might ask a follow-up question based on what they've shared, or briefly relate their experience to your own to establish common ground. For example, if they mention they came to the conference because they're interested in artificial intelligence, you might say, "That's fascinating. What aspect of AI interests you most?" Or you could connect with your own experience. "I'm interested in that field too, particularly how it's changing the marketing industry. What's your background with it?" This back and forth exchange begins to establish a rhythm of conversation where both parties are engaged and contributing. You've moved beyond the initial awkwardness of meeting someone new and into a genuine dialogue. The beauty of a strong opener is that it creates momentum. Once you've established a positive tone and gotten the other person talking about something they care about, the conversation often begins to flow more naturally. You've created an environment where they feel heard and valued, making them more likely to engage with you authentically in return. The power of remembering names. One of the most impactful elements of a first impression is whether you remember the other person's name throughout your interaction. Hearing our name activates unique brain regions associated with identity and attention. When someone remembers and uses our name, we feel recognized as an individual. When you're introduced to someone, make a conscious effort to register their name. If you didn't catch it clearly, it's perfectly acceptable to say, "I'm sorry, could you repeat your name?" This shows you care enough to get it right. Then, use a memory technique to help it stick. Perhaps visualize the spelling, associate it with someone else you know by that name, or connect it to a distinctive feature about the person. Use their name naturally during your conversation. "That's an interesting perspective, Jennifer," or "I agree with you, Robert." Just don't overdo it. Using someone's name in every sentence can feel forced or manipulative. Once or twice during a short conversation is sufficient to show you've paid attention. If you're meeting several people at once, don't panic about remembering every name. Focus on the people you're most likely to continue speaking with, and don't be embarrassed to ask for a reminder if needed. Most people understand that remembering names can be challenging and appreciate the effort to get it right. Creating lasting impact. As your initial conversation progresses, continue to build on the positive foundation you've established. Maintain that balance of sharing and listening, showing genuine interest in the other person while also revealing enough about yourself to create connection. Be mindful of your energy level throughout the interaction. Initial enthusiasm that fades quickly can leave a worse impression than a consistently moderate but genuine engagement. Stay present in the conversation rather than looking around the room or checking your phone, which signals that you're already searching for someone more interesting to talk to. Remember that first impressions aren't just about the first few seconds. They encompass the entire first interaction. How you conclude the conversation matters too. When it's time to move on, wrap up warmly. "It's been great talking with you about your work in graphic design. I'd love to continue this conversation sometime." If appropriate, this is the moment to exchange contact information or connect on professional networks. The techniques in this chapter may seem like a lot to remember, but with practice, they become second nature. The more you consciously implement these strategies, the more naturally they'll flow in future interactions. Soon, making a positive first impression won't require conscious thought. It will simply be how you approach meeting new people. The impact of mastering first impressions extends far beyond social comfort. Strong initial connections open doors to professional opportunities, meaningful friendships, and productive collaborations. In a world where relationships drive success in nearly every arena, the ability to start those relationships on the right foot is invaluable. As you move forward in your journey to master conversation, remember that first impressions set the stage for everything that follows. But what happens after those initial moments? How do you maintain and deepen the connection you've established? This is where the subtle power of body language continues to play a crucial role. Beyond those first moments, your nonverbal cues will either reinforce or undermine the positive impression you've created. The way you hold yourself, the expressions that cross your face, and the gestures you use all speak volumes about your confidence, interest, and authenticity. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to harness these silent signals to create deeper connection and trust in every conversation. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to Grow to the Top and activate notifications to receive more self-improvement tips that will supercharge your growth. And make sure to give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. It really helps the channel grow. Thank you for your support. Chapter 2, Body Language. Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling inexplicably uncomfortable despite nothing overtly negative being said? Or perhaps you've instantly trusted someone you just met without quite knowing why. In both cases, you were likely responding to something powerful yet invisible: body language. We humans are remarkably perceptive creatures. Long before we process the words being spoken to us, we're absorbing and interpreting a complex array of nonverbal signals. The slight furrow of a brow, the angle of someone's shoulders, the steadiness of their gaze. These silent messages often speak louder than words ever could. Consider this: two people deliver the exact same message. "I'm really interested in what you have to say." One person says this while leaning forward, maintaining eye contact, and nodding occasionally. The other says it while glancing at their phone, arms crossed tightly across their chest. Which one would you believe? The answer is obvious, and it illustrates a fundamental truth about human communication. What your body communicates can either reinforce or completely undermine your spoken message. When there's alignment between your words and your physical presence, you create a powerful impression of authenticity and confidence. When there's discord, people instinctively trust what they see over what they hear. This silent language isn't just something we passively emit, it's a skill we can consciously develop and harness. By becoming fluent in the art of nonverbal communication, you gain a remarkable advantage in every interaction. You'll project confidence even when you're nervous, create instant rapport with new acquaintances, and ensure your message is received exactly as you intend. But what exactly constitutes this hidden language, and how can you master it to transform your conversations? Let's begin by exploring one of the most powerful elements of nonverbal communication, one that has the potential to create immediate connection or instant discomfort. The window to connection. They say the eyes are the window to the soul, and when it comes to meaningful conversation, this couldn't be more accurate. Eye contact is perhaps the most intimate form of nonverbal communication we possess. It's also one of the most nuanced. The difference between confident connection and uncomfortable staring can be a matter of seconds. When you meet someone's gaze during conversation, you're doing far more than simply looking at them. You're signaling attention, interest, and engagement. You're saying, without words, "You have my full focus right now." In a world of constant distraction, this kind of undivided attention has become increasingly rare and increasingly valuable. The power of eye contact begins with finding the right balance. Too little, and you may appear disinterested, insecure, or even dishonest. Too much, and you risk creating discomfort or seeming aggressive. The sweet spot lies somewhere in between, what communication experts call the dance of gaze. This dance involves maintaining eye contact for periods of about 3 to 5 seconds before briefly breaking away, perhaps to nod, gesture, or simply take a natural pause. Then, you return to that connection. This rhythm feels natural because it mimics the normal pattern of attention in conversation, focused engagement punctuated by moments of processing or reflection. If maintaining eye contact feels challenging at first, and for many people it does, there's a simple technique that can help. Instead of looking directly into someone's pupils, which can feel intense, focus on the area between their eyes or the triangle formed by their eyes and nose. To them, It still registers as eye contact, but it might feel less intimidating for you as you build your confidence. But eye contact isn't just about duration, it's also about quality. Your eyes can communicate a remarkable range of emotions and responses without you saying a word. When someone shares something surprising, allowing your eyes to widen slightly acknowledges their statement in a way that feels responsive and engaged. When they express something concerning, a slight furrow of your brow communicates empathy. These micro-expressions show that you're not just physically present, but emotionally attuned to the conversation. Perhaps the most powerful way to engage with your eyes is through what photographers and models call smizing, smiling with your eyes. A genuine smile isn't just about turning up the corners of your mouth. It creates a slight crinkle at the corners of your eyes and a softening of your gaze. This authentic expression is instantly recognizable and remarkably disarming. It signals warmth, openness, and genuine pleasure in the interaction. The impact of skillful eye contact cannot be overstated. Research has consistently shown that appropriate eye contact increases perceptions of confidence, competence, and trustworthiness. It creates a sense of connection that transcends words and lays the foundation for meaningful exchange. By mastering this fundamental aspect of body language, you take the first step toward becoming a more compelling and effective communicator. But while your eyes may be the focal point of connection, they're just one element in a much larger physical vocabulary. Let's expand our view to consider how your entire body speaks volumes in every interaction. The power of posture. Your posture, the way you hold and position your body, sends immediate signals about your confidence, authority, and engagement level. Before you've said a single word, the set of your shoulders and the alignment of your spine have already begun telling your story. Consider the difference between someone who enters a room with shoulders back, head held high, and movements deliberate versus someone who shuffles in with rounded shoulders and downcast eyes. The first person commands attention and respect. The second might barely be noticed. Same person, different posture, dramatically different impact. The foundation of confident posture begins with alignment. Imagine a string attached to the crown of your head, gently pulling upward. This visualization naturally aligns your spine, squares your shoulders, and lifts your chin to a position that projects self-assurance. This doesn't mean standing rigidly at attention. Natural, comfortable alignment is the goal, not military stiffness. This upright posture doesn't just affect how others perceive you, it actually changes how you feel about yourself. Groundbreaking research in embodied cognition has demonstrated that adopting confident postures for even brief periods can lower stress hormones and increase feelings of power and confidence. Your body doesn't just express your mental state, it can actually create it. Beyond basic alignment, the orientation of your body communicates volumes about your level of engagement. When you're genuinely interested in a conversation, you naturally tend to face the other person directly, creating what body language experts call fronting. This open stance, where your torso is aligned toward your conversation partner, signals attention and respect. Conversely, when you angle your body away, check your watch, or point your feet toward the exit, you're sending unmistakable signals that you're ready to end the interaction. These cues are so deeply ingrained in our social understanding that we often register them without conscious awareness, feeling only the vague impression that someone is disengaged or eager to leave. The position of your limbs also speaks volumes. Crossed arms, while sometimes simply comfortable, can create a barrier between you and others that reads as defensive or closed off. Open arms, with hands visible and gestures flowing naturally, signal approachability and honesty. This is why effective public speakers often use open palm gestures. They convey transparency and build trust. The space you occupy matters as well. Claiming an appropriate amount of space, standing with feet planted firmly at shoulder width, using deliberate gestures that extend into the area around you, projects confidence and authority. Conversely, making yourself small, hunching shoulders, keeping arms tight to your sides, taking up minimal space, can read as insecurity or submission. Of course, Cultural context matters enormously in interpreting posture. What reads as confident in one culture might seem aggressive in another. The key is to be mindful of these differences while still maintaining the core elements of aligned, open posture that universally signal engagement and self-assurance. By becoming conscious of how you hold yourself in conversation, you gain the ability to project confidence even when you don't necessarily feel it. This isn't about pretending or being inauthentic. It's about using your physical presence to support your best self in every interaction. Speaking with your hands. While your posture creates the foundation of your nonverbal message, your hands add the nuance and emphasis. Think of them as the punctuation marks in your body's vocabulary. They underline important points, add emotional color, and bring your words to life. Human beings have been gesturing to communicate since long before language developed. Our hands can express concepts that words sometimes struggle to capture: size, direction, shape, emotion, with immediate visual impact. When used purposefully, gestures can dramatically enhance comprehension and retention of your message. Natural, expressive hand movements make you appear more animated, enthusiastic, and engaging. When you describe something expanding, your hands might naturally spread apart. When emphasizing a key point, a deliberate gesture might punctuate your words. These movements aren't just decorative, they actually help both you and your listener process information more effectively. Research in cognitive science has shown that gesturing while speaking reduces cognitive load. In other words, it actually makes it easier for you to think and speak simultaneously. For your listener, appropriate gestures provide visual anchors that make your message more memorable and easier to follow. The key word here is appropriate. Gestures that are too large or dramatic can distract from your message or make you appear overwrought. Movements that are too rigid or choreographed can seem rehearsed and inauthentic. The sweet spot lies in natural, purposeful gestures that flow from your genuine enthusiasm for what you're communicating. Just as important as what you do with your hands is what you don't do. Fidgeting, playing with jewelry, repeatedly touching your face or hair, tapping fingers, jingling coins in your pocket, broadcasts anxiety and can distract from even the most compelling verbal message. These movements, often unconscious, can undermine your authority and credibility without you even realizing it. If you're not sure what to do with your hands, start with a neutral, comfortable position. Let them hang naturally at your sides, or lightly clasp them in front of you. From this home position, allow gestures to emerge organically as you speak. With practice, this becomes second nature, your hands becoming natural partners in expressing your thoughts and emotions. For those who tend toward excessive gesturing, the opposite practice is helpful, consciously returning to that neutral position between emphatic movements. This creates a rhythm in your physical expression that prevents your gestures from becoming overwhelming or distracting. By becoming mindful of how your hands contribute to your communication, you add another powerful dimension to your nonverbal vocabulary. But there's another aspect of body language that goes beyond what you express. It's about how you respond to and reflect the physical language of others. The mirror effect. Have you ever noticed how people in deep conversation often unconsciously adopt similar postures? One person leans forward, and moments later, the other does too. One crosses their legs, and soon their conversation partner follows suit. This phenomenon, known as mirroring, is one of the most fascinating aspects of nonverbal communication, and understanding it gives you access to a powerful tool for building rapport. Mirroring happens naturally when people feel connected and in sync. It's a physical manifestation of the human tendency to seek similarity and belonging. When we like someone or feel comfortable with them, we instinctively begin to match certain aspects of their behavior, their posture, gestures, speaking pace, even their breathing rhythm. What makes this knowledge so valuable is that the relationship works in both directions. Not only does rapport lead to mirroring, but intentional mirroring can actually help create rapport. By subtly matching select elements of another person's body language, you can establish a sense of harmony and connection that operates beneath conscious awareness. The key word here is subtle. Effective mirroring is never about mimicking or mocking. It's about gently echoing elements of the other person's physical expression to create a sense of synchrony. If they lean forward while making an important point, you might gradually shift forward as well. If they speak with animated hand gestures, you might become a bit more expressive in your own gesturing. This practice requires sensitivity and timing. The mirroring should be delayed slightly. Immediate copying would be obvious and off-putting, and should never include nervous habits or uncomfortable postures. The goal is to reflect the positive, engaging aspects of their communication style in a way that feels natural and builds connection. Beyond posture and gestures, energy matching is another powerful aspect of mirroring. Every person communicates with a certain energy level. Some are naturally animated and expressive, while others are more reserved and measured. By adjusting your own energy to complement theirs, you create a comfortable space for communication. If you're naturally high energy and you're speaking with someone more reserved, slightly moderating your enthusiasm, speaking a bit more softly, slowing your pace, using more contained gestures, can help them feel at ease. Conversely, if you're typically quiet and you're engaging with someone more animated, bringing a bit more expression to your communication can help bridge the gap. This doesn't mean completely changing your natural style. Authenticity remains essential. Think of it more as meeting the other person partway, creating a comfortable middle ground where connection can flourish. Voice modulation, while technically verbal, is closely tied to body language and plays an important role in this matching process. The pace, volume, and tone of your speech can be gently adjusted to complement your conversation partner's style. If they speak slowly and thoughtfully, racing through your responses at double speed creates discord. By finding a rhythm that harmonizes with theirs, you enhance the sense of being in sync. The science behind mirroring is compelling. Studies have shown that subtle mirroring increases feelings of trust and liking between people, even when they're not consciously aware it's happening. Salespeople who skillfully mirror their customers' body language typically achieve higher sales rates. Negotiators who employ these techniques often reach more favorable agreements. The effect is powerful, precisely because it operates largely beneath conscious awareness. Learning to mirror effectively takes practice and awareness. Start by simply observing how naturally mirroring occurs in conversations between people who are getting along well. Notice how friends often sit in similar ways, how couples fall into synchronized walking patterns, how people who are enjoying a discussion begin to match each other's energy and gestures. Then, in your own conversations, experiment with gentle mirroring. Notice how it affects the flow of communication and the sense of connection. With time, this becomes less a conscious technique and more an intuitive way of physically demonstrating attunement and building rapport. Putting it all together. The elements of body language we've explored, eye contact, posture, gestures, and mirroring, work together to create your physical presence in conversation. While we've examined each separately for clarity, in practice they form an integrated whole, with each aspect supporting and enhancing the others. Mastering body language isn't about memorizing a set of rules or performing a series of techniques. It's about developing awareness of how your physical presence affects communication and cultivating habits that align your nonverbal signals with your intentions. This begins with self-awareness. Most of us have unconscious patterns in our body language, perhaps a tendency to cross our arms when listening, to avoid eye contact when speaking, or to fidget when nervous. These patterns often developed early in life and operate below the level of conscious awareness. By bringing attention to these habits, you gain the power to modify them when they don't serve your communication goals. Video can be a powerful tool for developing this awareness. Recording yourself in conversation or while practicing a presentation can reveal patterns you might never notice otherwise. While watching yourself on video can be uncomfortable at first, it provides invaluable feedback on how others might perceive your nonverbal communication. Feedback from trusted friends or colleagues can also help identify blind spots in your body language. Sometimes we're unaware of habits that are obvious to others: the constant hair touching, the lack of eye contact, the closed posture. Inviting specific feedback on these aspects of your communication can accelerate your growth. As you work to refine your body language, remember that authenticity remains paramount. The goal isn't to construct an artificial physical presence, but to ensure that your nonverbal communication accurately reflects your intentions and supports your message. The most powerful body language emerges when your physical expression aligns with your genuine thoughts and feelings. This alignment creates what communication experts call congruence, a harmony between what you say and how you say it. When your words, tone, and body language all convey the same message, you project an unmistakable authenticity that builds trust and connection. Developing skillful body language takes time and practice. Begin by focusing on one element at a time, perhaps maintaining better eye contact for a week, then working on posture the next. Small, consistent adjustments gradually become new habits, transforming your nonverbal presence without feeling overwhelming. Remember, too, that body language is always contextual. What's appropriate in a casual social setting differs from what works in a formal business meeting. Cultural backgrounds introduce further variables. In some cultures, direct eye contact shows respect. In others, it may be considered challenging or inappropriate. Sensitivity to these contextual factors is an essential aspect of body language mastery. The rewards of developing skillful nonverbal communication extend far beyond making a good impression. When your body language is aligned and confident, you actually begin to feel more confident. When you physically express engagement and interest, you tend to become more genuinely engaged. Your body doesn't just express your internal state, it helps create it. By mastering the silent language of physical presence, you gain access to a dimension of communication that operates beneath words, yet carries profound influence. You ensure that your nonverbal signals reinforce rather than contradict your message. You create an impression of authenticity, confidence, and attunement that draws others to you and makes every conversation more effective. But while your body speaks volumes in conversation, there's another dimension of communication that's equally powerful, yet often overlooked. It's a skill that can transform casual exchanges into meaningful connections, turn conflicts into collaborations, and make you the kind of person others seek out when they need to be truly understood. This hidden superpower has little to do with what you say and everything to do with how you receive what others share. As we'll explore in the next chapter, sometimes the most powerful communication happens when you're not speaking at all. Chapter 3. Active Listening. When was the last time you felt truly heard? Not just when someone nodded along to your words, but when you sensed they genuinely understood what you were trying to express, perhaps even grasping the emotions beneath your words. If you can recall such a moment, you likely remember how powerful it felt, how validating, how connecting. Now flip the question. When was the last time you gave someone else that same gift, the gift of your complete, undivided attention? In our hyper-connected world, true listening has become increasingly rare. We live in an age of constant distraction, where notifications compete for our attention and the next thought often takes precedence over the present moment. Many of us have developed the habit of half-listening, nodding along while our minds wander to our next meeting, our growing to-do list, or what we plan to say next. The result? A world full of people speaking but rarely feeling heard. Yet within this reality lies an extraordinary opportunity. By developing the skill of truly listening to others, you set yourself apart in the most meaningful way possible. You become the person others seek out when they need to talk, the colleague whose input carries weight, the friend whose presence feels like a sanctuary. This chapter explores a deceptively simple yet transformative approach to conversation, one that shifts the focus from how you speak to how you listen. It's an approach that creates deeper connections, builds trust, and ultimately makes you more influential and respected in every relationship. But before we dive into the specifics, let's consider what's actually happening when two people engage in conversation. The hidden dimension of conversation. Most of us think of conversation primarily as an exchange of information, words and ideas passing back and forth between speakers. But beneath this surface exchange, something far more fundamental is occurring. A human need for connection and understanding is either being fulfilled or frustrated. When someone speaks to you, they're not just transmitting data, they're revealing something of themselves, their thoughts, perspectives, experiences, and emotions. They're making themselves vulnerable in ways both small and significant. And in that moment of vulnerability, they're seeking confirmation that they've been understood. This need to be understood runs deep in human psychology. From our earliest moments, we seek recognition and validation from others. We want to know that our experiences matter, that our perspectives have value, that our emotions are legitimate. When this need is met, we feel connected and secure. When it's frustrated, we feel isolated and diminished. Here lies the first insight into the power of listening. What most people want from conversation isn't primarily advice, solutions, or even agreement. They want understanding. They want to know that their words have landed somewhere meaningful, that they've made an impact, that they've been truly seen and heard. Yet true understanding is surprisingly rare in everyday conversation. Studies suggest that the average person remembers only about 25% of what they hear in a typical exchange. The rest is filtered out, misinterpreted, or simply forgotten as our attention drifts or focuses on formulating our response. This gap between speaking and being understood creates both a challenge and an opportunity. The challenge is to overcome our habitual patterns of distracted, self-focused listening. The opportunity is to become the rare person who offers others the gift of being fully heard, a gift that builds trust, deepens relationships, and ultimately makes you more influential in every sphere of life. But what exactly does it mean to truly listen to another person? Let's begin to explore the art and science of active listening, starting with the foundation of all meaningful attention. The power of presence. Active listening begins with a simple yet profound shift, bringing your full attention to the present moment and the person before you. This quality of presence, of being fully here now, creates the container for everything else that follows. In practice, this means deliberately eliminating distractions that pull your attention away from the speaker. The most obvious of these is technology. When you place your phone face down, or better yet, out of sight entirely during a conversation, you send a powerful message. Nothing is more important right now than being here with you. This simple act of respect sets the tone for meaningful exchange. But external distractions are only part of the challenge. Often, the most persistent distractions come from within, the mental chatter that pulls us away from the present moment. While someone is speaking, our minds might jump ahead to what we want to say next, or drift to unrelated concerns, or get caught in evaluating and judging what's being said, rather than simply taking it in. Becoming aware of these internal distractions is the first step toward managing them. When you notice your mind wandering during a conversation, gently bring your focus back to the speaker, to their words, their expressions, their meaning. This mental return is like a muscle that strengthens with practice. Each time you notice your attention has drifted and consciously bring it back, you're building your capacity for sustained presence. One powerful technique for maintaining focus is to mentally repeat or paraphrase what the person is saying as they speak. This internal echoing keeps your mind engaged with their message rather than racing ahead to your response. It also helps encode their words in your memory, improving your recall of the conversation later. Your physical orientation also plays a crucial role in communicating presence. When you position your body to face the speaker directly, maintaining an open posture as discussed in Chapter 2, you not only signal your attention, but actually help yourself stay more focused. Your body and mind work together. The physical act of facing someone and maintaining appropriate eye contact helps anchor your mental attention to the present exchange. This quality of presence isn't just something the other person perceives, It's something they feel. When you're fully present, they sense that you're with them, that you're creating a space where their words matter. This feeling of being valued is the foundation of trust and openness in any relationship. But presence alone, while essential, isn't sufficient for active listening. The next dimension involves demonstrating your engagement in ways that encourage the speaker to continue sharing. The art of encouragement. Have you ever tried to explain something important to someone who remained completely stone-faced and silent throughout? Even if they were listening intently, their lack of visible response likely made you feel uncertain and hesitant. Did they understand? Did they care? Should you continue? Active listening isn't passive. It involves providing thoughtful feedback that encourages the speaker and confirms your engagement. These responses, both verbal and nonverbal, create a conversational rhythm that supports deeper sharing and understanding. Nonverbal encouragement includes the subtle cues that show you're tracking with the speaker. Nodding at appropriate moments, leaning slightly forward when they make an important point, raising your eyebrows to show interest or surprise. These physical responses happen naturally when you're genuinely engaged, but becoming more conscious of them allows you to use them more effectively. Verbal encouragement comes in the form of small acknowledgments that confirm you're following along without interrupting the speaker's flow. Simple responses like, "I see," or "go on," at natural pauses signal that you're with them and invite them to continue. These minimal encouragers, as communication experts call them, act as conversational lubricant, keeping the exchange flowing smoothly. The timing of these responses matters greatly. Offering them at natural pauses in the speaker's rhythm shows you're attuned to their pace. Interjecting them too frequently can feel like interruption. Using them too sparingly might make the speaker wonder if you're still with them. Finding the right balance comes with practice and sensitivity to the individual speaker's style. Perhaps the most powerful form of encouragement in conversation is simply allowing silence. Many of us feel uncomfortable with pauses and rush to fill them, but giving the speaker space after they finish a thought, a moment to breathe, to consider whether they've fully expressed themselves, to decide if they want to add more, can lead to deeper sharing than would otherwise occur. This patience with silence is particularly important when discussing complex or emotional topics. Often, what someone says first is just the surface of what they mean. The deeper, more vulnerable thoughts emerge in the space after, if we have the patience to wait for them. The counterpoint to this patience is avoiding interruption. When you cut someone off before they've completed their thought, even if you're excited to agree or have a relevant question, you send the message that your input is more important than their completion. This breaks the flow of their thinking and diminishes their sense of being heard. By combining presence with thoughtful encouragement, you create an environment where the speaker feels safe to express themselves fully. But true active listening goes beyond creating this supportive space. It involves actively processing what you hear to ensure genuine understanding. The mirror of understanding. Imagine explaining a complex problem to someone. At the end of your explanation, they simply say, "I understand." Would you be convinced that they truly got it? Probably not. But what if instead they said, "So if I'm understanding correctly, you're concerned about X because of Y, and you're trying to decide whether to do Z. Is that right?" The difference is dramatic. In the second response, you can actually see that they've processed your words. You can confirm their understanding or clarify any misinterpretations. You feel the satisfaction of knowing your message has been received. This is the power of reflection, the practice of paraphrasing or summarizing what you've heard to confirm your understanding. It's like holding up a mirror that allows the speaker to see how their words have landed with you. Effective reflection isn't about parroting back exactly what someone has said. It's about capturing the essence of their message in your own words, demonstrating that you've processed and internalized their meaning. This might sound like, "It seems like you're feeling frustrated because the project timeline keeps changing," or If I'm hearing you correctly, your main concern is about the impact this decision will have on the team. The magic of reflection is that it serves multiple purposes simultaneously. For the speaker, it provides confirmation that they've been understood and an opportunity to clarify if needed. For you as the listener, it ensures you've accurately grasped their meaning rather than projecting your own interpretation. And for the relationship, it builds trust by demonstrating your commitment to understanding. Reflection is particularly valuable when dealing with complex or emotionally charged topics where misunderstanding is common. By checking your understanding before responding with your own thoughts or advice, you prevent the conversation from going off track due to misinterpretation. The companion to reflection is clarification, asking questions that help you better understand what the speaker means. These aren't questions that change the subject or advance your own agenda, but rather inquiries that deepen your grasp of their perspective. Clarifying questions might be as simple as, "Could you tell me more about that?" Or, "What do you mean when you say it was challenging?" They invite the speaker to elaborate, fill in gaps, or explain terms or references you don't understand. These questions serve another important function. They signal your genuine interest in understanding fully. When you ask thoughtful questions about what someone has shared, you communicate that their perspective matters to you, that you're invested in getting it right. The combination of reflection and clarification creates a conversational dynamic where understanding is prioritized over response. Rather than rushing to offer your thoughts, solutions, or related experiences, you ensure first that you've truly grasped what the other person is communicating. This patience pays dividends in the quality of connection and the accuracy of your eventual response. But even with perfect understanding of the content of someone's message, there's another dimension that must be addressed for true active listening, the emotional component that underlies most human communication. The heart of listening, empathy and validation. Beneath the surface, content of most conversations runs an emotional current. When someone describes a challenging work situation, they're not just sharing information, they're expressing frustration or anxiety. When they talk about an accomplishment, they're conveying pride or satisfaction. These emotional elements are often the most important part of the message, even when they're not explicitly stated. Active listening involves tuning in to this emotional frequency, hearing not just what someone is saying, but how they feel about it. This emotional attunement is the essence of empathy, the ability to sense and understand another person's feelings. Empathetic listening doesn't require you to have experienced exactly what the other person has gone through. It simply means making the effort to imagine how the situation might feel from their perspective, based on what they've shared and your understanding of human emotion. When you detect the emotional content in someone's message, acknowledging it can be profoundly validating. This might sound like, "That sounds really frustrating," or "I can imagine how exciting that must have been for you." These simple reflections of emotion show that you're connecting with the human experience behind their words. Validation goes a step further, confirming that their emotional response makes sense given the situation. Statements like, "I can understand why you'd feel that way," or "anyone would be concerned in that situation," normalize their experience and create a sense of shared humanity. This validation is particularly powerful when someone is sharing difficult emotions like disappointment, anger, or fear. In these moments, people often worry about being judged for their feelings. When you validate their emotional response as reasonable and understandable, you create psychological safety that allows for greater openness and trust. It's important to note that validating someone's feelings doesn't necessarily mean agreeing with their interpretation of events or their proposed solutions. You can acknowledge that their frustration makes sense given their perspective, even if you might see the situation differently. This distinction allows you to be both empathetic and honest in your responses. When someone shares something particularly personal or vulnerable, expressing appreciation for their openness can further strengthen the connection. Simple statements like, "Thank you for sharing that with me," or "I appreciate your honesty about this," acknowledge the trust they've placed in you and encourage continued openness. The combination of empathy and validation creates a powerful sense of being understood at a human level. This feeling of understanding is what people often remember long after the specific details of a conversation have faded. They may not recall exactly what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel, seen, heard, and valued. The transformative impact of active listening. As you develop your active listening skills, you'll begin to notice profound changes in your conversations and relationships. People will share more openly with you, trust you with more significant matters, and seek out your company when they need to talk through important issues. This transformation occurs because active listening satisfies one of our deepest human needs, the need to be understood. When you consistently offer others this experience of being heard and valued, you become a safe harbor in a world where true listening is increasingly rare. The benefits extend beyond individual relationships. In professional settings, active listening leads to better information exchange, more effective collaboration, and fewer misunderstandings. In leadership roles, it helps you understand the concerns and motivations of your team, allowing you to address issues before they become problems and inspire greater engagement and commitment. Even in difficult conversations, disagreements, negotiations, or conflicts, active listening creates the foundation for resolution. When people feel genuinely heard, they become more open to hearing others in return. Their defensive posture relaxes, creating space for mutual understanding and creative problem-solving. Perhaps most surprisingly, becoming a better listener actually makes you more influential. When people feel understood by you, they become more receptive to your perspective. Your words carry greater weight because they're built on the foundation of demonstrated understanding. You gain the earned right to be heard because you've first given others that same gift. Developing active listening skills requires practice and patience. It means sometimes setting aside your own agenda to focus fully on understanding another person. It means resisting the urge to immediately offer solutions or share your own similar experiences. It means being comfortable with silence and willing to ask questions rather than make assumptions. But the investment pays extraordinary dividends. In a world where attention is increasingly fragmented and genuine connection increasingly rare, the ability to truly listen is perhaps the most valuable communication skill you can develop. It transforms ordinary conversations into meaningful exchanges. It builds trust in every relationship, and it establishes you as someone who offers others what they most deeply desire, the experience of being truly understood. As you continue your journey to becoming a master conversationalist, you'll discover that listening lays the groundwork for everything that follows. But once you've created this foundation of understanding, how do you express your own thoughts with equal clarity and impact? How do you ensure that your words land with the same power and precision with which you've received others? The next dimension of conversation mastery involves finding your voice, not just speaking, but speaking in a way that captivates attention and conveys your message with unmistakable clarity. Let's explore how the way you speak can transform ordinary words into extraordinary impact. Chapter 4. Effective Speaking. Have you ever noticed how some people command attention the moment they begin to speak? It's not necessarily what they say, but how they say it that draws you in. Their words flow with a certain rhythm and clarity. Their voice carries confidence and warmth. They seem to express complex ideas with remarkable simplicity, making you lean in to catch every word. This quality, this ability to speak in a way that captivates and clarifies, isn't simply a natural gift bestowed on a lucky few. It's a skill that can be developed, refined, and mastered by anyone willing to pay attention to the mechanics of their verbal expression. In the previous chapters, we explored how your first impression, body language, and listening skills create the foundation for meaningful conversation. Now we turn our attention to the vehicle that carries your thoughts into the world, your spoken words. But effective speaking goes far beyond simply stringing words together. It encompasses a constellation of elements that work in harmony to ensure your message not only reaches your listener, but resonates with them. Think about the last time you struggled to follow someone's explanation. Perhaps they spoke so quietly you had to strain to hear, or so rapidly you couldn't process their words. Maybe they meandered through their thoughts without a clear direction, or peppered their speech with so many ums and likes that you found yourself counting these fillers rather than absorbing their message. These common speaking habits create static in the communication channel, noise that interferes with the transmission of your ideas. By eliminating this static and amplifying the clarity of your expression, you ensure that your thoughts reach their destination intact, with all their intended impact. Let's begin our exploration of effective speaking by examining the foundation upon which all verbal communication is built: the physical act of producing clear, audible speech. The architecture of clarity. Clarity begins with the simple yet often overlooked skill of articulation, the physical act of forming words with precision. When you articulate clearly, you remove the first and most basic barrier to understanding, the struggle to simply hear and distinguish your words. Many of us develop speech habits that undermine clarity without realizing it. We mumble, swallowing the ends of words. We rush, blending distinct sounds together. We speak too softly, forcing listeners to strain to catch our meaning. These habits often develop during adolescence or in response to social anxiety, and they can persist unnoticed into adulthood. The first step toward greater clarity is simply becoming aware of how you currently speak. Do you tend to trail off at the ends of sentences? Do you rush through explanations when you're excited or nervous? Do people often ask you to repeat yourself? These are clues that your articulation might need attention. Improving articulation begins with a conscious effort to open your mouth more fully when you speak and to pronounce consonants crisply. Consonants are the architecture of speech. They provide the structure that makes words distinct and recognizable. When you soften or swallow consonants, you remove the framework that holds your speech together, leaving a mushy, indistinct impression. Try this simple exercise. Speak a sentence aloud, exaggerating the movement of your lips, tongue, and jaw. It will feel odd, even theatrical, but this exaggeration helps you become aware of the physical mechanics of speech and builds the muscle memory for clearer articulation. With practice, you'll find a natural middle ground between mumbling and over-enunciation, a clear, crisp delivery that requires no extra effort from your listener to understand. Volume is the companion to articulation in creating basic clarity. The ideal volume varies with context. A one-on-one conversation in a quiet room requires less projection than addressing a group in a noisy environment. But in any setting, your voice should reach your intended audience without strain on either side. Speaking too quietly can signal insecurity and force listeners to work harder than they should. Speaking too loudly can be jarring and create the impression of aggression or lack of awareness. Finding the right volume begins with reading the room. Notice the ambient noise level and the distance between you and your listeners. Then adjust your projection accordingly, aiming for a volume that allows your words to be heard clearly without overwhelming the space. If you're unsure, watch for nonverbal feedback. People leaning forward or cupping their ears suggests you need more volume. Slight wincing or leaning back indicates you might be too loud. For those who tend to speak softly due to shyness or habit, practicing projection can feel uncomfortable at first. Start by speaking from your diaphragm rather than your throat. This creates a fuller, more resonant sound without strain. Imagine your voice reaching the person farthest from you, even in a one-on-one conversation. This mental image naturally increases your volume to an appropriate level. With clear articulation and appropriate volume established, the next element of verbal clarity is pacing, the rate at which you deliver your words and the strategic use of pauses between thoughts. The power of pacing. The speed at which you speak significantly impacts how well others understand and retain your message. When you rush through your words, a common response to nervousness or excitement, you create several problems. Your articulation suffers as sounds blur together. Your listeners struggle to process one idea before you've moved to the next, and you create an impression of anxiety that can undermine your credibility. Conversely, speaking too slowly can test your listeners' patience and make you seem hesitant or overly deliberate. The ideal pace varies somewhat with context and content. Complex ideas generally benefit from a slower delivery than simple ones, but should always allow the listener to comfortably process your words without feeling either rushed or impatient. Finding your optimal pace begins with awareness. Many people have no idea how quickly they typically speak, especially when nervous or enthusiastic. Recording yourself in conversation can be revelatory. You may discover you're speaking much faster than you realize. Once aware, you can practice moderating your pace, aiming for a rate that feels slightly slower than your instinct might suggest. A helpful guideline is to speak at a rate where someone could comfortably take notes on what you're saying. This ensures your ideas have time to land and be processed. If you tend to speak quickly, try consciously articulating each word, especially at the beginning of your response. This creates a measured opening that sets the pace for what follows. But effective pacing isn't just about finding the right speed, it's also about the strategic use of pauses. Many speakers fear silence, rushing to fill every moment with sound. Yet pauses are among the most powerful tools in verbal communication. They give weight to important points, create rhythm in your speech, and allow your listener time to absorb complex ideas. Try placing a deliberate pause after making an important point. The silence creates emphasis, signaling to your listener that what you've just said deserves special attention. Similarly, a pause before an important point creates anticipation, drawing your listener in. These strategic silences transform a monologue into a dynamic exchange, even when you're the only one speaking. Pauses also give you time to gather your thoughts, preventing the verbal stumbles and filler words that often result from rushing ahead without clarity. When you feel uncertain about what to say next, resist the urge to fill the space with or like. Instead, take a calm breath and collect your thoughts. A confident pause is far more powerful than a stream of hesitant fillers. With clarity established through articulation, volume, and pacing, we can turn our attention to the element that transforms clear speech into compelling speech, the music of your voice. The melody of influence. Imagine listening to a piece of music played on a single note with no variation in volume, rhythm, or emphasis. No matter how beautiful the note, the monotony would quickly become unbearable. Yet many of us speak in exactly this way, in a flat, unvarying tone that lulls our listeners into disengagement. The human voice is capable of remarkable variation in pitch, volume, and rhythm. These variations create the melody of speech, what linguists call prosody. When skillfully employed, this verbal music doesn't just maintain attention, it actually enhances understanding by highlighting the structure and emotional content of your message. The most basic element of vocal variety is intonation, the rise and fall of pitch as you speak. In a monotone delivery, pitch remains flat, creating the impression of boredom or disengagement. By contrast, varied intonation signals animation and interest. It guides your listener through the emotional landscape of your ideas, indicating which parts are exciting, which are serious, which are questions, and which are definitive statements. Developing more expressive intonation begins with simply allowing yourself to be more vocally animated. Many people, particularly in professional settings, suppress their natural vocal variety out of a misguided belief that a flat, serious tone sounds more authoritative. In reality, appropriate vocal animation conveys confidence and passion, qualities that enhance rather than diminish your authority. Try exaggerating your intonation in private practice, allowing your voice to rise with excitement and lower with seriousness. While you'll likely moderate this range in actual conversation, the practice helps break the habit of monotone delivery and reminds you of your voice's natural expressiveness. Beyond general intonation, strategic emphasis on key words creates verbal highlighting that guides your listener to what matters most. By slightly increasing volume, changing pitch, or slowing down on crucial words, you create auditory signposts that direct attention and enhance retention. For example, compare these two deliveries of the same sentence. The project deadline has been moved to Thursday. The project deadline has been moved to Thursday. The emphasis in the second version ensures the listener registers the critical information, the specific day. This verbal highlighting is particularly valuable when delivering information that needs to be remembered or acted upon. The emotional tone of your voice, its warmth, authority, enthusiasm, or compassion, adds another layer of meaning to your words. This tone should align with your content. A mismatch between what you say and how you say it creates cognitive dissonance that undermines your message. If you're sharing exciting news, let your voice reflect that excitement. If you're discussing a sensitive topic, a softer, more measured tone conveys appropriate seriousness. This congruence between content and delivery creates authenticity that builds trust and connection. Developing an engaging tone doesn't mean adopting an artificial presentation voice or mimicking someone else's speaking style. Rather, it means allowing your natural expressiveness to emerge in service of your message. The most compelling speakers sound like authentic, animated versions of themselves, not like they're performing or imitating a different persona. With clarity and engagement established through these vocal techniques, we can address the final element of effective speaking, the discipline of concision. The art of getting to the point. In an age of information overload and diminishing attention spans, the ability to express yourself concisely has never been more valuable. Concision isn't about speaking in clipped, abbreviated sentences or eliminating necessary detail. It's about delivering your message in the most efficient way possible, respecting your listener's time and cognitive resources. The first barrier to concision is filler words, those verbal tics like like, you know, and basically that creep into our speech when we're thinking or hesitant. While an occasional filler is natural and human, excessive use creates several problems. Fillers distract the listener, dilute your message, and create an impression of uncertainty or lack of preparation. Most of us use fillers unconsciously, unaware of how frequently they pepper our speech. Becoming conscious of your particular filler habits is the first step toward reducing them. Recording yourself in conversation can be eye-opening. You might discover patterns you never noticed, like starting every response with "so" or ending statements with "you know?" Once aware, you can begin replacing fillers with brief, comfortable silences. When you feel the urge to say while gathering your thoughts, simply pause instead. This takes practice, as the impulse to fill silence is strong. But with time, you'll find that these clean pauses actually enhance rather than detract from your delivery, creating a more thoughtful, measured impression. Beyond eliminating fillers, concision requires organizing your thoughts before speaking. Many of us discover what we think by talking through it, a process that can be valuable for exploration, but often leads to rambling, circular communication that tests the listener's patience. Taking even a brief moment to mentally outline your response before speaking can dramatically improve its clarity and concision. What's your main point? What supporting details are essential? What can be omitted without losing meaning? This quick mental organization prevents the common pattern of circling back to add forgotten details or clarify points that could have been stated clearly the first time. A particularly effective technique is leading with your conclusion rather than building up to it. In casual conversation, we often start with background and context, only revealing our main point after a lengthy preamble. Reversing this pattern, stating your central idea first, then adding context as needed, ensures your key message is delivered even if time is limited or attention wanders. For example, instead of, "I was looking at the quarterly reports yesterday and noticed some interesting trends in our customer acquisition data, particularly in the Midwest region, where we've been testing that new marketing approach, and it seems like the numbers are showing a significant improvement." Try. "Our new marketing approach is working, Customer acquisition is up 20% in test regions. I noticed this yesterday while reviewing the quarterly reports. The second version delivers the essential information immediately, then provides context. If the conversation is interrupted or the listener's attention drifts, the key point has still been communicated. This bottom-line upfront approach is particularly valuable in professional settings, where time is limited and decisions often need to be made efficiently. But it's equally effective in social conversation, where it prevents the common experience of listeners wondering, where is this story going? Concision also involves being sensitive to your listener's level of interest and engagement. In any conversation, provide the condensed version of your thoughts first, then expand based on the response you receive. If they lean in, ask questions, or show other signs of engagement, you can provide more detail. If they seem distracted or overwhelmed, your brief version may be sufficient. This responsive approach to detail ensures you're meeting your listener where they are, rather than subjecting everyone to the most exhaustive version of your thoughts, regardless of interest or relevance. It's the conversational equivalent of sending a summary with more details available upon request, rather than attaching a 50-page report to every email. Bringing it all together. Effective speaking integrates all these elements, clarity, engagement, and concision, into a seamless whole that serves your message rather than drawing attention to itself. The goal isn't to sound like a polished news anchor or to eliminate every from your speech. It's to ensure that your ideas reach your listener with their full impact intact, undiminished by delivery problems that create static in the communication channel. This integration begins with awareness, noticing how you currently speak and identifying specific habits that might be undermining your effectiveness. Do you tend to mumble or speak too quickly? Does your voice remain flat regardless of what you're discussing? Do you circle around your point instead of stating it directly? These patterns, once recognized, can be gradually modified through conscious practice. The key word is gradually. Trying to change too many speaking habits simultaneously can leave you self-conscious and hesitant, actually diminishing your effectiveness. Instead, focus on one element at a time, perhaps working on clearer articulation for a few weeks, then addressing filler words, then practicing more expressive intonation. Each improvement builds on the last, creating a progressively more effective speaking style. Practice is essential, but it needn't be formal or time-consuming. Every conversation is an opportunity to implement these principles. Pay attention to your articulation during a casual chat with a friend. Notice your pacing in a work meeting. Practice leading with your conclusion when explaining a decision to a colleague. These small, consistent efforts compound over time, gradually transforming your speaking style. Feedback accelerates this development. If you have trusted friends or colleagues, ask for specific input on your speaking habits. What do they notice about your pace, clarity, or concision? Their observations might reveal patterns you're unaware of and help you focus your practice on the areas that will yield the greatest improvement. Recording yourself, while initially uncomfortable for most people, provides the most objective feedback. A brief video of yourself in conversation or delivering a practice presentation can reveal habits that would otherwise remain invisible to you. Watch with a constructive mindset, noting both strengths to build on and specific areas for improvement. As you refine your speaking skills, remember that the ultimate goal is not perfection, but effectiveness. The most compelling speakers aren't those who never say or who have perfectly modulated voices. They're those whose delivery enhances rather than hinders their message, who speak with a clarity, engagement, and concision that allows their ideas to shine through. Effective speaking isn't about drawing attention to yourself or your delivery. It's about removing the barriers between your thoughts and your listener's understanding. When you speak clearly, with appropriate animation, and without unnecessary detours, you create a direct channel through which your ideas can flow unimpeded. This clarity of expression complements the listening skills we explored in the previous chapter, creating a balanced approach to conversation that both gives and receives with equal effectiveness. You become someone who not only truly hears others, but can be truly heard in return, a rare and valuable combination in any personal or professional context. But while these technical aspects of speaking are essential, they're only part of the equation. Even the most articulate, engaging, and concise speaker will struggle to connect if there's no foundation of rapport between them and their listener. In our next chapter, we'll explore how to create that crucial sense of connection, the invisible bridge that transforms two separate individuals into conversation partners who genuinely relate to and understand each other. What is this mysterious quality that makes some conversations flow effortlessly while others remain stilted and superficial? Let's discover the hidden dynamics that create authentic connection. Chapter 5: Building Rapport. Have you ever met someone and felt an immediate connection? That sense that the conversation just flows, that you're on the same wavelength, that you could talk for hours without running out of things to say. Or perhaps you've had the opposite experience, an interaction that remains stubbornly stilted and superficial, despite your best efforts to get it off the ground. What makes the difference between these two scenarios isn't just luck or chemistry. There's a subtle art to creating that sense of connection, that feeling of clicking with another person. It's an art that some people seem to practice instinctively, while others struggle to master it. But regardless of where you currently fall on that spectrum, the good news is that this ability can be developed and refined by anyone willing to learn its principles. In the previous chapters, we've explored how to make a strong first impression, use effective body language, listen actively, and speak with clarity and impact. These skills form the foundation of effective communication. But communication alone doesn't necessarily create connection. You can exchange information clearly with someone and still feel like strangers when the conversation ends. What transforms a mere exchange of words into a meaningful connection? What creates that almost magical sense that you and the other person are truly in sync, truly understanding each other? That's what we'll explore in this chapter, the subtle yet powerful dynamics that build rapport between people and transform superficial interactions into the beginnings of real relationship. Let's start by examining what happens beneath the surface when two people begin to feel that spark of connection. The invisible bridge. When rapport begins to form between two people, something remarkable happens. The psychological distance between them, that sense of you over there, me over here, begins to diminish. A bridge forms, creating a shared space where thoughts and feelings can flow more freely. Defenses lower, trust begins to build. The conversation shifts from an exchange between separate individuals to a collaborative creation. This shift is more than just a pleasant social experience. It fundamentally changes the nature and potential of your interaction. When rapport is present, people become more open, more honest, more willing to share their true thoughts and feelings. Ideas flow more easily. Disagreements become less threatening. Solutions emerge more readily. Whether your goal is to build a friendship, collaborate on a project, negotiate an agreement, or simply enjoy a meaningful conversation, rapport creates the conditions for success. But what exactly creates this invisible bridge? At its core, rapport emerges from a fundamental human truth. We are drawn to those who are like us and those who make us feel valued. These two principles, similarity and validation, form the foundation of all meaningful connection. When you discover that someone shares your interests, values, experiences, or even simple preferences, a sense of kinship naturally emerges. You're like me, your brain registers, often below the level of conscious awareness. You're part of my tribe. This recognition of similarity creates an immediate sense of comfort and trust. Similarly, when someone shows genuine interest in you, asking thoughtful questions, remembering details you've shared, appreciating your perspective, you feel valued and seen. This validation satisfies a deep human need for recognition and acceptance, creating positive feelings that become associated with the person who provided that experience. The fascinating thing about rapport is that these dynamics work in both directions. Not only are you naturally drawn to those who seem similar to you and who show interest in you, but you can deliberately cultivate these conditions to create connection with others. By finding and highlighting points of commonality, and by demonstrating genuine curiosity and appreciation, you can build rapport with almost anyone, regardless of your initial differences. Let's explore how to put these principles into practice, starting with the powerful technique of finding common ground. The power of common ground. One of the fastest ways to establish rapport is to discover and highlight similarities between you and the other person. These points of connection can be substantial: shared values, similar backgrounds, common professional interests, or they can be relatively trivial. You both enjoy the same music, grew up in the same region, or follow the same sports team. What matters is not the significance of the commonality, but the feeling of kinship it creates. The search for common ground begins with curiosity about the other person's interests, experiences, and passions. Simple, open-ended questions can reveal potential areas of connection. What do you enjoy doing outside of work? Have you lived in this area long? What kinds of books or shows do you enjoy? As they respond, listen attentively for anything that resonates with your own experiences or interests. When you discover a commonality, don't let it pass unacknowledged. Highlight it with genuine enthusiasm. You grew up in Colorado? So did I. Or I love that band too. I've been listening to their new album constantly. This explicit recognition of shared ground creates an immediate sense of connection and gives you a natural topic to explore together. But finding common ground isn't just about asking questions, it also involves selectively sharing relevant aspects of yourself. As the other person talks about their interests or experiences, look for opportunities to contribute related information about yourself. If they mention enjoying hiking, you might share your own interest in outdoor activities. If they talk about a challenge they're facing at work, you might mention a similar situation you've encountered. This reciprocal sharing serves multiple purposes. It helps identify additional areas of commonality. It demonstrates that you're engaged in the conversation, not just interrogating them. And perhaps most importantly, it creates balance in the interaction. You're both revealing yourselves, both contributing to the building of the bridge between you. The key word here is relevant. Effective self-disclosure isn't about randomly volunteering information about yourself or redirecting the conversation to your experiences at every turn. It's about sharing aspects of yourself that relate to what the other person has expressed, creating a sense of mutual understanding and shared experience. Once you've identified a point of connection, don't simply note it and move on. Explore it further to strengthen the bond. If you discover you both enjoy photography, ask what kind of subjects they like to shoot, what equipment they use, or how they got started with the hobby. Share your own experiences in these areas. This deeper exploration of shared interests creates a richer sense of connection than simply identifying the commonality and moving on. Even when you don't immediately find obvious common ground with someone, you can often create it by finding points of connection at a more abstract level. Perhaps you don't share the same hobby, but you can relate to their enthusiasm for it. Maybe you haven't faced the exact same challenge they're describing, but you understand the feelings of frustration or uncertainty it created. By connecting at the level of shared human experience, you can build rapport even with people whose specific circumstances or interests differ significantly from your own. Remember that the goal isn't to pretend commonality where none exists. Inauthentic attempts at connection are usually transparent and counterproductive. Rather, it's to be genuinely curious about the other person and attentive to the areas where your lives, interests, or experiences naturally intersect. These points of intersection, however small they might initially seem, are the foundation upon which meaningful rapport can be built. The art of genuine curiosity. While finding common ground creates an initial sense of kinship, it's your genuine curiosity about the other person that deepens and sustains rapport. When someone feels that you're truly interested in understanding them, not just waiting for your turn to speak or looking for opportunities to impress, they naturally open up and engage more fully in the conversation. This curiosity isn't about collecting information or asking a predetermined set of questions. It's about being genuinely interested in the other person's world, their thoughts, experiences, perspectives, and feelings. It's about approaching them with a sense of wonder and openness, recognizing that every person you meet has something unique and valuable to share. The most direct expression of curiosity is the questions you ask. Open-ended questions, those that can't be answered with a simple yes or no, invite the other person to share more deeply. Instead of, "Did you enjoy the conference?" try, "What was the most interesting thing you learned at the conference?" Instead of, "Do you like your job?" ask, "What aspects of your work do you find most fulfilling?" These open-ended questions create space for the other person to express themselves more fully and direct the conversation toward what matters to them. They signal that you're interested in more than a superficial exchange. You want to understand their experience and perspective in a meaningful way. In the early stages of building rapport, aim to listen more than you speak. A good rule of thumb is the 80-20 principle. Strive to listen 80% of the time and speak 20%. This ratio ensures that you're gathering enough information to understand the other person and giving them ample opportunity to express themselves. As rapport builds and the conversation becomes more balanced, this ratio may naturally shift toward 50-50. But starting with more listening than speaking helps establish a foundation of understanding and shows that you value their perspective. As you listen, pay careful attention to the details they share, especially those mentioned in passing that might reveal something important about their interests or concerns. If someone casually mentions that they just moved to the area, follow up with questions about their experience so far. If they reference a challenge they're facing, express interest in understanding it better. These follow-up questions, based on specific details, show that you're not just going through the motions of conversation, you're truly engaged with what they're sharing. Encourage elaboration with simple prompts that invite the person to continue or go deeper. "That sounds fascinating. Tell me more about that. What was that experience like for you? How did you feel about that?" These prompts signal your interest in hearing more and often lead to the most meaningful parts of a conversation as people share the thoughts and feelings that lie beneath their initial statements. As you practice this kind of attentive curiosity, be mindful of the difference between genuine interest and interrogation. The goal isn't to extract information or press for details the person isn't comfortable sharing. It's to create space for them to express themselves and to show that you value what they have to say. Follow their lead. If they seem eager to elaborate on a topic, continue with thoughtful questions. If they give brief responses or change the subject, respect those boundaries and shift your attention accordingly. Remember that curiosity isn't just expressed through questions. It's also conveyed through your nonverbal cues. The attentive eye contact, the encouraging nods, the expressions of interest or empathy that show you're fully engaged with what they're sharing. These signals of attention, combined with thoughtful questions and follow-ups, create an environment where the other person feels valued and understood. The perfect conditions for rapport to flourish. The gift of genuine appreciation. While finding common ground creates a sense of kinship and showing curiosity demonstrates that you value the other person's perspective, there's a third element that powerfully enhances rapport: expressing genuine appreciation and positive regard. Human beings have a fundamental need to feel valued and respected. When someone acknowledges our positive qualities, appreciates our contributions, or simply expresses enjoyment of our company, it creates a warm glow of positive feeling that naturally draws us toward that person. By thoughtfully and authentically expressing appreciation, you can create this positive experience for others, strengthening the connection between you. The most direct form of appreciation is the genuine compliment. Unlike flattery, which is excessive or insincere praise given to manipulate, a genuine compliment highlights something you truly admire or appreciate about the other person. It might focus on a quality you've observed. I really admire how thoughtfully you approach problems. An accomplishment they've mentioned. Completing that project under such tight constraints is really impressive. Or even the value they've added to the conversation. I appreciate how you challenged my thinking on this. You've given me a new perspective. The key to an effective compliment is specificity. Vague, generic praise, "You're so smart," or "You're really nice," feels less meaningful than specific recognition. The way you explained that complex concept made it so clear. Or, "I noticed how you made sure everyone had a chance to speak in the meeting." Specific compliments show that you're paying attention and that your appreciation is based on genuine observation rather than social convention. Timing also matters. A compliment offered at a relevant moment, right after someone has shared an accomplishment or demonstrated a quality you admire, feels more natural and sincere than one that seems to come out of nowhere. Let your appreciation emerge organically from the flow of conversation rather than feeling obligated to offer praise at arbitrary intervals. Beyond direct compliments, you can express appreciation by affirming the other person's ideas, perspectives, or contributions to the conversation. When they share a viewpoint you find insightful, let them know, "That's a really good point. I hadn't thought about it that way before." When they offer a suggestion you find valuable, acknowledge it. "That's an excellent idea. It addresses the exact issue we've been struggling with." This kind of affirmation does more than just make the other person feel good, though that alone would be valuable. It also encourages them to continue sharing their thoughts and perspectives, creating a positive cycle where they feel increasingly comfortable expressing themselves authentically with you. Expressing gratitude is another powerful form of appreciation. When someone shares something personal, offers help or advice, or simply engages thoughtfully with you, a sincere "thank you" acknowledges the value of their contribution. "Thanks for sharing that experience with me. I know it wasn't easy to talk about. I really appreciate you taking the time to explain this. It's much clearer now." These expressions of gratitude recognize the other person's investment in the interaction and show that you don't take their engagement for granted. As with all aspects of building rapport, authenticity is essential when expressing appreciation. People have remarkably sensitive radar for detecting insincerity, and false or exaggerated praise can damage trust rather than building it. The goal isn't to manufacture compliments or gratitude, but to become more aware of what you genuinely appreciate about others and more intentional about expressing that appreciation. This doesn't mean you should only express positive thoughts or avoid disagreement. Authentic rapport isn't built on artificial harmony, but on genuine engagement, which sometimes includes respectful difference of opinion. The key is to express disagreement in a way that still conveys respect for the other person and appreciation for their perspective, even if you see things differently. By combining the search for common ground, genuine curiosity, and authentic appreciation, you create the conditions for meaningful rapport to develop. Each element reinforces the others. Discovering commonalities gives you more to be curious about. Curiosity reveals more areas of potential appreciation, and appreciation creates the positive atmosphere that encourages further sharing and discovery of common ground. The ongoing dance of connection. Building rapport isn't a one-time achievement, but an ongoing process that evolves as your relationship develops. The techniques we've explored aren't meant to be used as a formula or script, but as principles that guide your approach to each unique interaction. In the early stages of connection, you might focus more on finding common ground and asking questions that help you understand the other person's world. As rapport builds, the interaction typically becomes more balanced, with both parties contributing equally to the conversation and the discovery process. The initial search for basic commonalities gives way to deeper exploration of shared interests or experiences. Questions become more nuanced as your understanding of the other person grows. Throughout this evolution, remain attentive to the quality of connection between you. Rapport isn't static. It can strengthen or weaken depending on how the interaction unfolds. If you sense the energy of the conversation flagging or the connection diminishing, you might return to one of the core principles. Look for new areas of common ground, express curiosity about a different aspect of their experience, or share appreciation for something you've learned from the interaction. Remember that building rapport isn't about executing techniques perfectly, but about creating an authentic human connection. The specific questions you ask or compliments you offer matter less than the genuine interest and positive regard behind them. People respond not just to what you do, but to who you are being in the interaction. Someone who is curious, appreciative, and open to connection. This authenticity is what distinguishes meaningful rapport from manipulation or superficial charm. When your interest is genuine, your appreciation sincere, and your self-disclosure authentic, you create the conditions for a connection that is not only immediately rewarding, but has the potential to develop into a lasting relationship of mutual value. The ability to build rapport is perhaps the most fundamental social skill, underlying success in every domain that involves human interaction. In professional settings, it creates the foundation for effective collaboration, negotiation, leadership, and influence. In personal life, it enables the formation of meaningful friendships, romantic relationships, and community connections. Even brief interactions with service providers, neighbors, or strangers you meet while traveling become more pleasant and rewarding when infused with the warmth of rapport. By mastering this art, you transform not only your conversations but your experience of moving through the world. You create more moments of genuine connection, more opportunities for collaboration and mutual support, more doors that open because people feel good in your presence and want to engage with you further. But as powerful as rapport is, it's only the beginning of what's possible in human connection. Once you've established that initial sense of comfort and mutual positive regard, how do you maintain it when the stakes get higher? How do you express yourself with confidence even in challenging situations? How do you ensure that your authentic self comes through clearly without being diminished by doubt or anxiety? These questions lead us to the next dimension of conversational mastery, one that builds on the foundation of rapport but requires a different kind of inner work. It's a quality that we recognize instantly in others, but often struggle to cultivate in ourselves. What is this elusive yet essential element that transforms good communicators into truly compelling ones? Let's explore the power that lies at the core of all effective interaction. Chapter 6, Confidence. What's the difference between someone who walks into a room and immediately connects with others and someone who hangs back, hesitant to engage? Between the person who speaks up in meetings with clarity and conviction and the one who remains silent despite having valuable insights to share. Between the individual who approaches a stranger at an event with ease and the one who spends the evening talking only to people they already know. It's not necessarily knowledge, intelligence, or even social skills. Often, the critical difference is something more fundamental: confidence. Confidence acts as the foundation upon which all your other communication skills rest. You might know exactly how to make a great first impression, read body language, listen actively, speak clearly, and build rapport, but without confidence, these skills remain theoretical rather than practical. They stay locked in your mind rather than flowing into your interactions. Yet confidence can feel elusive, especially in social situations. Even people who feel self-assured in other areas of life, their work, hobbies, or relationships with established friends, may find themselves hesitant and uncertain when it comes to initiating conversations with new people or speaking up in group settings. If you've ever felt this way, you're in good company. Surveys consistently show that social anxiety and conversational nervousness affect the majority of people, often cited around 70 to 75% of the population. The fear of speaking in public frequently ranks as one of people's top fears, sometimes even above the fear of death. This suggests something profound. For many of us, the prospect of social judgment feels more threatening than physical danger. But here's the good news. Confidence isn't an innate quality that some people are born with and others are not. It's a skill that can be developed. a muscle that can be strengthened, a habit that can be cultivated through consistent practice and the right approach. In this chapter, we'll explore practical strategies for building genuine confidence in your conversations, not the superficial bravado that masks insecurity, but the authentic self-assurance that comes from understanding yourself, challenging limiting beliefs, and gradually expanding your comfort zone through experience. Let's begin by examining what's really happening when we feel that familiar flutter of nervousness before a social interaction. The inner game of confidence. When you feel anxious about a conversation, whether it's approaching someone new, speaking up in a meeting, or even calling an acquaintance on the phone, what's really happening inside your mind? At its core, social anxiety stems from a fear of negative evaluation. Your brain, designed to protect you from threats, perceives the possibility of rejection or judgment as a genuine danger. This triggers a cascade of physiological responses. Your heart rate increases, your breathing becomes shallow, your muscles tense, and your thoughts race. These physical sensations then feed back into your mental state, amplifying your anxiety and creating a cycle that can be difficult to break. But beneath these immediate reactions lies a deeper layer: your beliefs and thought patterns about yourself and social situations. These often take the form of an internal monologue, a running commentary that interprets events and makes predictions about what will happen. For many people, this internal voice can be surprisingly harsh and pessimistic when it comes to social interactions. They won't find me interesting. I'll run out of things to say. I always get awkward in these situations. They'll think I'm stupid if I speak up. These thoughts aren't facts, they're interpretations, predictions, and judgments. Yet when we're caught in their grip, they feel absolutely true. They seem less like opinions and more like accurate reflections of reality. And because we believe them, they shape our behavior. We avoid the conversation, stay silent in the meeting, or stick to safe topics rather than expressing our genuine thoughts. The first step toward greater confidence, then, is becoming aware of these internal narratives and recognizing them for what they are: habitual thought patterns, not objective truths. By developing this awareness, you create space between yourself and your thoughts. You gain the ability to observe your internal monologue rather than being completely identified with it. Try this. The next time you feel nervous before a social interaction, pause and notice what you're telling yourself about the situation. What predictions are you making? What judgments about yourself are arising? Simply observing these thoughts, there's my mind telling me I'll have nothing interesting to say, begins to diminish their power over you. Once you've identified these self-limiting narratives, you can begin to challenge and reframe them. This doesn't mean replacing negative thoughts with unrealistic, positive ones. It means questioning the validity of your assumptions and considering alternative perspectives that are both more balanced and more helpful. For example, if you catch yourself thinking, "I always get awkward in conversations with new people," you might challenge this with, "Is that really true? Have there been times when conversations with new people went well? And even if I do feel awkward sometimes, doesn't everyone? Feeling a bit uncomfortable is normal and doesn't mean the conversation is going badly." This kind of realistic reframing acknowledges difficulties without catastrophizing them. It reminds you that social discomfort is a universal human experience, not a personal failing, and it opens up the possibility that things might go better than your anxious mind is predicting. Another powerful reframing technique is to shift your focus from self-judgment to curiosity and learning. Instead of approaching a conversation with the pressure to perform perfectly, you might tell yourself, "This is an opportunity to practice my conversation skills. Whether it goes smoothly or not, I'll learn something valuable from the experience." This growth mindset, the belief that abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work, is strongly associated with resilience and achievement across many domains, including social skills. When you view each interaction as part of a learning journey rather than a test of your worth, you create the psychological safety to take risks, make mistakes, and ultimately improve. Visualization is another powerful tool for building confidence from the inside out. Your brain doesn't always distinguish clearly between vividly imagined experiences and real ones. When you mentally rehearse a successful interaction, picturing yourself speaking with ease, others responding positively, the conversation flowing naturally, you create neural patterns similar to those that would form during an actual positive experience. Before entering a social situation that makes you nervous, take a few minutes to visualize it going well. Imagine yourself smiling, speaking clearly, listening attentively, and connecting with others. Feel the sensations of confidence and ease in your body. Picture others responding warmly to you. This mental rehearsal primes your brain and body for a positive experience, making it more likely that you'll approach the situation with confidence rather than anxiety. Setting a positive intention can further enhance this mental preparation. Rather than focusing on avoiding failure, I hope I don't say anything stupid, focus on what you want to create or experience. I'm going to enjoy meeting new people, or I'm going to learn something interesting about my colleagues. This subtle shift in focus directs your attention and energy toward positive possibilities rather than potential pitfalls. These internal practices, awareness, reframing, visualization, and intention setting, create the mental foundation for greater confidence. But while mindset is crucial, it's not the whole story. To develop lasting confidence, you need to combine inner work with outer action. The power of progressive exposure. Imagine trying to develop physical strength without ever lifting weights or using your muscles. No matter how much you read about fitness or visualized yourself being strong, you wouldn't actually become stronger without physical practice. The same principle applies to confidence in conversation. To build this skill, you need to actually engage in conversations, gradually challenging yourself to expand your comfort zone. This approach draws on a well-established psychological principle called exposure therapy. When we avoid situations that make us anxious, we temporarily reduce our discomfort, but we also reinforce the belief that these situations are threatening and that we can't handle them. Conversely, when we gradually expose ourselves to challenging situations and discover that we can cope, that the feared negative outcomes don't materialize or aren't as catastrophic as we imagined, our anxiety naturally diminishes over time. The key word here is gradually. Throwing yourself into highly challenging social situations before you're ready can backfire, reinforcing anxiety rather than building confidence. Instead, think of building social confidence as climbing a ladder, moving from less challenging interactions to more challenging ones as your comfort increases. What might the rungs of this ladder look like? For someone with significant social anxiety, the first step might be simply making eye contact and saying hello to a neighbor or store clerk, a brief, low-stakes interaction with minimal pressure. Once this becomes comfortable, they might progress to asking a simple question or making a brief comment, then to having a short conversation, and eventually to more extended or complex social engagements. For someone with moderate social confidence who wants to become more comfortable in professional settings, the latter might start with speaking up in small team meetings, progress to asking questions in larger gatherings, then to presenting prepared material to a group, and eventually to impromptu speaking or leading discussions. The specific ladder will vary based on your starting point and goals, but the principle remains the same. Identify interactions that feel slightly challenging but manageable, practice them until they become comfortable, then move to the next level of challenge. Consistency is crucial in this process. Brief, regular practice is more effective than occasional intense efforts. Making small talk with a cashier for 30 seconds each day will build your confidence more effectively than forcing yourself through a 3-hour networking event once a month. These small daily interactions create a foundation of comfort and competence that gradually extends to more challenging situations. As you practice, pay attention to your successes, no matter how small they might seem. Did you maintain eye contact throughout a brief exchange? Did you ask a question that led to an interesting response? Did you share a thought in a meeting, even if your voice shook a little? These are victories worth acknowledging. By recognizing your progress, you build evidence that contradicts your self-limiting beliefs and reinforces your growing confidence. It's also important to embrace opportunities for social interaction, even when your initial impulse might be to avoid them. When invited to gatherings, meetings, or events where you'll have the chance to practice your conversation skills, challenge yourself to attend, within reason, respecting your energy levels and genuine preferences. Each of these situations is an opportunity to build your confidence muscle a little stronger. Setting specific, achievable goals for these social situations can further enhance their value as confidence-building experiences. Rather than entering an event with the vague hope that it goes well, leaving you vulnerable to judging the entire experience as a failure based on a single awkward moment, define success in concrete terms. I'll introduce myself to at least 2 new people, or I'll ask at least 1 question during the meeting. These clear, actionable goals focus your attention on what you can control, your own behavior, rather than what you can't, others' responses, or the overall outcome. When you achieve these goals, you experience a sense of accomplishment that builds confidence, regardless of how the interaction felt in the moment. Remember that building confidence through exposure is a gradual process. You'll have good days and challenging days. Some interactions will flow naturally, others will feel awkward or difficult. This variation is normal and doesn't indicate failure. What matters is the overall trajectory, the gradual expansion of your comfort zone and capabilities over time. The body-mind connection. While mindset and practice form the foundation of confidence, there's another powerful lever you can use to accelerate your progress: your physical presence. The relationship between body and mind isn't a one-way street, with thoughts simply directing physical actions. It's a continuous feedback loop, with your posture, movements, facial expressions, and breathing patterns influencing your mental and emotional state, just as your thoughts influence your body. This means you can literally adopt the physical posture of confidence to help generate the internal experience of confidence. When you stand tall, with your shoulders back, chin level, and weight evenly distributed, you not only appear more confident to others, you actually begin to feel more confident yourself. Research in embodied cognition supports this idea. In one famous study, participants who held power poses, expansive postures associated with confidence and authority, for just 2 minutes showed hormonal changes associated with increased confidence and decreased stress compared to those who held closed, contracted postures. While the specific hormonal findings of this study have been debated, the broader principle that physical posture influences psychological state is supported by multiple lines of research and countless personal experiences. Before entering a situation where you want to feel confident, take a moment to check and adjust your posture. Stand or sit up straight, with your shoulders relaxed but not slumped, your chest open, and your chin parallel to the ground. Feel your feet firmly connected to the floor, grounding you. This posture not only projects confidence to others, but sends a signal to your own nervous system that you are safe, capable, and in control. For an extra boost before particularly challenging interactions, you might try a power pose in private, standing with your hands on your hips like a superhero, or with your arms raised in a V for victory. While these poses might look odd in public, doing them privately for a minute or 2 before an important conversation can create a surge of confidence that carries into the interaction. Your breathing pattern also powerfully affects your emotional state. When anxious, most people breathe shallowly and rapidly from the chest, which further activates the sympathetic nervous system, the fight-or-flight response. By consciously shifting to slow, deep breathing from the diaphragm, you activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest response, reducing physical anxiety and creating a state of calm alertness. A simple breathing technique to try before or during stressful social situations is the 4-4-4 pattern. Inhale for a count of 4, hold for a count of 4, and exhale for a count of 4. Repeat this cycle 3 to 5 times, and you'll likely notice a significant reduction in physical tension and anxiety. Your facial expression is another powerful influence on your emotional state. Research has found that deliberately adopting a genuine smile, even when you don't initially feel happy, can actually generate positive emotions. This facial feedback hypothesis suggests that the act of smiling sends signals to your brain that you're experiencing positive emotions, which then actually creates those emotions. Before and during social interactions, consciously relax your facial muscles and allow a natural smile to form. This not only makes you appear more approachable and confident to others, but actually helps generate feelings of ease and positivity within yourself. Finally, your voice plays a crucial role in both projecting and creating confidence. Speaking in a clear, steady tone at an appropriate volume signals assurance to others while reinforcing your own sense of authority. Avoid trailing off at the ends of sentences or raising your pitch as if asking a question when making a statement. These habits can undermine the impact of your words and your internal sense of conviction. Practice speaking from your diaphragm rather than your throat, which creates a fuller, more resonant sound. Project your voice so it can be easily heard without straining or shouting. Speak at a measured pace that allows your words to land with impact. These vocal techniques not only enhance how others perceive you, but influence how you perceive yourself. When you hear your own voice sounding confident, you begin to feel more confident. By consciously adopting the physical patterns associated with confidence, posture, breathing, facial expression, and voice, you create a virtuous cycle. You appear more confident to others, which elicits more positive responses, which in turn reinforces your internal sense of confidence. Your body becomes an ally in building the psychological state you desire. The confidence spiral. As you implement these strategies, challenging negative thoughts, gradually expanding your comfort zone through practice, and adopting confident body language, you set in motion what we might call the confidence spiral, a self-reinforcing cycle of growth. It begins with small changes in how you think, act, and hold yourself. These changes lead to slightly more positive experiences in your interactions, which provide evidence that contradicts your limiting beliefs. This new evidence supports more confident thoughts, which inspire more confident actions, which lead to more positive experiences, and the spiral continues upward. Each positive interaction becomes a reference point that your brain can draw on when facing future social situations. Remember how that conversation with the new team member went better than expected? This one probably will too. These reference points gradually replace the negative experiences or imagined disasters that previously dominated your thinking about social interactions. Over time, what once required conscious effort becomes automatic. You no longer need to deliberately challenge negative thoughts because confident expectations have become your default. You no longer need to push yourself to engage in conversations because they've become opportunities rather than threats. You no longer need to consciously adjust your posture and breathing because the physical patterns of confidence have become habitual. This doesn't mean you'll never feel nervous or uncertain again. Even the most socially confident people experience moments of doubt or anxiety, particularly in high-stakes situations. But with practice, these feelings become manageable background noise rather than overwhelming obstacles. You learn to act with confidence even when you feel some nervousness, knowing that the action itself will often dissolve the feeling. Remember that confidence is not about the absence of fear, but about the ability to move forward despite it. It's not about knowing with certainty that everything will go perfectly, but about trusting that you can handle whatever arises. It's not about being the most charismatic or articulate person in every conversation, but about being authentically present and engaged, bringing your unique perspective and qualities to each interaction. As you continue to build this genuine confidence, grounded in self-awareness, realistic thinking, gradual exposure, and embodied practice, you'll find that conversations become less about performance and more about connection. You'll worry less about how you're coming across and focus more on the actual exchange of ideas and experiences. You'll be more present, more authentic, and ultimately more effective in all your interactions. The journey to confidence is not always linear. You'll have setbacks and moments of doubt. You'll encounter situations that challenge you in unexpected ways. But with consistent practice and self-compassion, the overall trajectory will be upward. Each conversation becomes an opportunity to strengthen your confidence muscle a little more, to add another positive reference point to your collection, to spiral a little higher in your capacity for authentic self-expression. As your confidence grows, you'll find yourself able to engage more fully in all aspects of conversation, listening with presence rather than anxiety, speaking with clarity rather than hesitation, connecting with openness rather than guardedness. You'll discover that confidence doesn't just make social interaction less stressful, it makes it more rewarding, more impactful, and more aligned with who you truly are. But while confidence creates the foundation for effective communication, there's another dimension that transforms ordinary conversations into memorable ones. It's the element that makes people lean in when you speak, that creates vivid impressions in their minds, that makes your words resonate long after the interaction has ended. What is this powerful yet often overlooked aspect of masterful conversation? Let's explore the art that brings your words to life and makes your interactions truly unforgettable. Chapter 7: Storytelling. Think back to the last truly memorable conversation you had. What made it stick in your mind? Was it the precise facts exchanged, the logical arguments presented, or was it something else? Something that touched you emotionally, made you laugh, or painted a vivid picture in your imagination? Chances are, what you remember most vividly isn't raw information, but moments of human connection. Perhaps a personal anecdote that resonated with your own experience, a humorous observation that made you both laugh, or a passionate description that made you feel what the speaker was feeling. This is no coincidence. The human mind is wired for narrative. Long before written language, before formal education, even before settled civilization, humans gathered around fires to share stories. These narratives weren't just entertainment. They were the primary vehicle for transmitting knowledge, values, and wisdom from one generation to the next. That ancient wiring remains with us today. When information comes packaged in story form, our brains engage differently than when we're presented with abstract facts or logical arguments. Multiple neural networks activate simultaneously: language processing, sensory perception, emotional response, personal memory, creating a rich, immersive experience that makes the content more meaningful and memorable. Yet, in our information-saturated world, many conversations remain oddly flat. We exchange data, opinions, and pleasantries without tapping into the power of narrative. We forget that the most compelling communicators throughout history, from religious leaders to political figures, from teachers to business innovators, have consistently used stories to convey their messages and connect with their audiences. The good news is that you don't need to be a professional storyteller to harness this power in your everyday conversations. You already have a wealth of experiences, observations, and insights that can be shaped into engaging narratives. By learning a few key principles of effective storytelling, you can transform ordinary exchanges into meaningful connections that others will remember long after the conversation ends. Let's explore how to bring this ancient art into your modern interactions, starting with the foundation of any good story. Structure. The architecture of engagement. Every effective story, whether it's a 30-second anecdote or a 3-hour epic film, shares a basic structural DNA. Understanding this architecture gives you a framework for organizing your thoughts into a narrative that captures and maintains attention. At its simplest, a story consists of 3 parts: a beginning that sets the scene, a middle that presents a challenge or interesting development, and an end that provides resolution or insight. This structure creates a sense of movement and purpose that keeps listeners engaged, wondering, what happens next? Or, how does this turn out? The beginning of your story orients your listener, establishing the context they need to understand what follows. It answers basic questions like who, where, and when. Keep this part brief, just enough information to set the stage without delaying the action. For example, last summer, while I was hiking alone in the mountains, immediately establishes time, place, and character, creating a foundation for what follows. The middle introduces tension, surprise, or interest, something that disrupts the ordinary and creates narrative momentum. This could be a challenge you faced. Suddenly the weather turned, and I found myself caught in a thunderstorm. An unexpected event. I came across an abandoned cabin that wasn't on any map, or an interesting observation. I noticed something strange about the trail markers. This development is what makes your story worth telling, the reason listeners should care and keep listening. The end provides closure, whether through resolution of the challenge. I managed to find shelter just as the hail started. A revelation. Inside the cabin was a journal from 1932 that described the same hike I was taking, or a reflection that gives meaning to the experience. It made me realize how much I take modern navigation for granted. A strong ending leaves your listener with a clear takeaway, something to think about, relate to, or simply enjoy. This basic structure, beginning, middle, end, creates a satisfying narrative arc that feels complete. Without this architecture, anecdotes tend to meander, losing the listener's interest or leaving them confused about the point of the story. In casual conversation, brevity is particularly important. Unlike a novel or film where the audience has committed to an extended narrative experience, conversational stories compete with many other potential topics and activities for attention. A good rule of thumb is to keep most conversational anecdotes under 2 minutes, just long enough to make your point or share your experience without dominating the exchange. This doesn't mean rushing through your story. In fact, strategic pauses at key moments can heighten interest and give important points time to land. After describing a tense moment, a brief pause lets your listener absorb the emotion. Before revealing a surprising twist, a moment of silence builds anticipation. These pauses are part of the rhythm of effective storytelling, creating space for your listener to fully engage with the narrative. As you tell your story, pay attention to your listener's reactions. Are they making eye contact, nodding, showing emotional responses appropriate to the content? These are signs of engagement that suggest your story is landing effectively. If they seem distracted, confused, or impatient, you might need to move more quickly to your conclusion or clarify an important point they may have missed. Remember that the goal of storytelling in conversation isn't to deliver a perfectly crafted narrative, but to create connection. The structure serves this purpose by making your story accessible and engaging, but it should never feel rigid or rehearsed. The best conversational stories flow naturally, adapting to the specific context and listener while maintaining their essential shape. With this basic architecture in mind, let's explore how to make your stories not just structurally sound, but genuinely relatable to your listener. The bridge of relevance. Even the most well-structured story will fall flat if it doesn't connect with your listener in some meaningful way. Relevance is the bridge that links your experience to theirs, making your story not just interesting, but personally meaningful. Creating this bridge begins with thoughtful selection of which stories to tell in a given conversation. Ask yourself, what does this person care about? What experiences might we share? What would be valuable or interesting to them specifically? The same event from your life might be told very differently, or not at all, depending on who you're speaking with. For example, if you're talking with someone who shares your professional field, an anecdote about an unusual work challenge might resonate strongly. With someone who shares your hobby, a story about a related experience would create immediate connection. With someone you've just met, you might choose a more universally relatable experience, like travel mishaps, learning something new, or a humorous misunderstanding. The key is finding the intersection between your experience and their interests or circumstances. This doesn't mean you can only tell stories about topics the other person has explicitly mentioned. Often, the human emotions underlying an experience, pride, embarrassment, surprise, wonder, create relevance even when the specific context differs. Most people can relate to feeling nervous before a big presentation, regardless of their profession, or the satisfaction of mastering a difficult skill, regardless of what that skill might be. Beyond choosing relevant stories, you can strengthen the bridge of connection by explicitly including your emotional experience in the narrative. Rather than simply recounting external events, share your internal journey, how you felt, what you thought, what you learned. These emotional elements are often what make a story relatable, even when the circumstances are unfamiliar to your listener. For instance, describing how anxious you felt before giving an important presentation, how relieved you were when a risky decision paid off, or how surprised you were by an unexpected outcome adds a human dimension that invites empathy and recognition. Your listener might never have given that specific type of presentation, made that particular decision, or encountered that exact situation, but they've almost certainly experienced anxiety, relief, and surprise in their own life. This emotional transparency does more than make your story relatable. It makes you relatable. By sharing your authentic reactions, including moments of vulnerability or uncertainty, you become more human and approachable. This openness invites similar authenticity from your listener, deepening the connection between you. As you develop your storytelling skills, you'll build a repertoire of personal anecdotes that you can draw upon in different conversational contexts. These aren't rehearsed performances, but rather experiences you've reflected on enough to share coherently when relevant. Having this repertoire ready means you'll rarely be at a loss for something meaningful to contribute, regardless of where the conversation leads. With structure, creating engagement and relevance building connection, your stories have the foundation to captivate your listener. But to truly enliven your conversations, there's another powerful element to consider, one that creates immediate warmth and rapport when used skillfully. The alchemy of humor. Few things create connection as quickly as shared laughter. A well-placed humorous comment or story can instantly transform the atmosphere of a conversation, dissolving tension, creating warmth, and establishing a sense of camaraderie between you and your listener. The power of humor in conversation goes beyond momentary enjoyment. When people laugh together, their brains release endorphins, neurochemicals associated with pleasure and well-being. This shared positive experience creates a biochemical bond, a literal feeling of connection that enhances rapport and trust. Even a small chuckle over a mild witticism creates this effect, building goodwill that extends throughout the interaction. Despite these benefits, many people hesitate to incorporate humor into their conversations, fearing they're not funny or worried about a joke falling flat. But conversational humor isn't about delivering perfect punchlines or elaborate jokes. It's about bringing a lighthearted perspective to everyday observations and experiences, finding the amusing angle in ordinary situations. One of the most accessible and effective forms of conversational humor is the self-deprecating anecdote, a story where you're the subject of the gentle joke. Perhaps you misunderstood something in an amusing way, made a minor but funny mistake, or found yourself in a mildly embarrassing situation. Sharing these moments with a lighthearted attitude shows that you don't take yourself too seriously and creates space for others to be similarly human and imperfect. For example, describing how you confidently walked into the wrong meeting and started participating before realizing your mistake, or how you spent 5 minutes having a detailed conversation with someone before realizing they weren't who you thought they were, invites laughter without making anyone uncomfortable. The humor comes from your willingness to acknowledge your own foibles rather than from criticizing or mocking others. Beyond specific anecdotes, you can bring a humorous perspective to the conversation through playful observations about shared experiences or surroundings. If you're both stuck in a long line, a lighthearted comment about how you should have brought camping equipment might elicit a smile. If you're at an overly formal event, a whispered aside about feeling underdressed compared to the elaborate decorations creates a moment of shared perspective. The key to effective conversational humor is attunement, paying careful attention to the context and your listener's responses. What's funny in one situation or with one person might fall flat or even offend in another context or with a different listener. Start with mild, universally acceptable humor and adjust based on how the other person responds. If they laugh readily at your first light quip, you might gradually incorporate more humor into the conversation. If they seem uncomfortable or don't respond, shift to a more straightforward approach. Always err on the side of inclusivity in your humor. The goal is to create connection, not to score points at someone else's expense. Avoid jokes that target specific groups, comment on physical appearance, or might touch on sensitive personal topics. When in doubt, make yourself the subject of the humor rather than others. Self-deprecation, in moderation, rarely offends and often endears. Remember that humor in conversation doesn't require you to be the funniest person in the room. It's about bringing a spirit of lightness and playfulness to your interactions, finding joy in the shared human experience with all its quirks and imperfections. A gentle chuckle can be just as connecting as uproarious laughter, sometimes more so, as it feels more intimate and personal. With structure creating engagement, relevance building connection, and humor warming the atmosphere, your stories have the essential elements to captivate your listener. But to truly bring your narratives to life, there's one more vital ingredient: the energy and emotion you bring to the telling. The spark of enthusiasm. Even the most perfectly structured, relevant, and humorous story can fall flat if delivered in a monotone, with minimal expression or apparent interest. Conversely, even a simple anecdote can become captivating when told with genuine enthusiasm and emotional engagement. Enthusiasm is contagious. When you speak about something with authentic passion, your energy naturally transfers to your listener. They become curious about what could possibly warrant such excitement. They're drawn into your emotional state, experiencing some of the same feelings you're expressing. This emotional contagion creates a powerful connection, making your story not just heard, but felt. Expressing enthusiasm begins with allowing your genuine emotions to show in your voice. Vary your tone to reflect the emotional content of what you're describing, brightening with excitement, softening with wonder, quickening with suspense. These vocal variations create an emotional soundtrack for your narrative, guiding your listener through the feeling journey of your story. Your face is equally important in conveying emotion. Let your expressions naturally reflect what you're describing, widening your eyes in surprise, furrowing your brow in concern, breaking into a genuine smile at a happy turn of events. These expressions aren't just for your listener's benefit. They actually help you access and communicate the emotions of your story more authentically. Physical animation further enhances your storytelling. Natural gestures that illustrate or emphasize key points bring your narrative to life visually. You might spread your arms to indicate something vast, use your hands to show the shape or size of an object, or mimic an action you're describing. These movements create a multi-sensory experience for your listener, making your story more vivid and memorable. The level of animation appropriate for your storytelling depends on the context and your personal style. In professional settings, more restrained expressiveness might be appropriate, while casual social situations often allow for greater animation. The key is authenticity, allowing your natural enthusiasm to show rather than forcing an exaggerated performance that feels inauthentic to either you or your listener. As you share your story with enthusiasm, actively engage your listener in the experience. Occasional rhetorical questions invite them to imagine themselves in the situation. Have you ever had that feeling when? Or, can you imagine what it was like too? These questions transform passive listening into active mental participation, deepening engagement with your narrative. Throughout your storytelling, remain attuned to your listeners' responses. Are they mirroring your energy, leaning in with interest, responding emotionally to the narrative turns? These are signs that your enthusiasm is effectively engaging them. If they seem overwhelmed or disengaged, you might modulate your energy to better match their comfort level. The most powerful storytelling comes from genuine passion rather than performance. When you share experiences that truly matter to you, your authentic enthusiasm naturally emerges. This doesn't mean you should only tell stories about topics you're deeply passionate about, but it does suggest that finding the aspects of any story that genuinely interest or move you will help you tell it more compellingly. The conversational storyteller. As you integrate these elements, structure, relevance, humor, and enthusiasm, into your conversational style, you'll develop a natural fluency in storytelling that enhances all your interactions. You'll find yourself able to transform ordinary experiences into engaging narratives, to find the humorous angle in everyday situations, to convey your thoughts with energy that captivates attention. This skill doesn't develop overnight. Like any art, storytelling improves with conscious practice and reflection. Pay attention to which of your stories engage others and which seem to lose their interest. Notice which humorous observations land well and which fall flat. Observe how your level of animation affects your listener's response. Each conversation becomes an opportunity to refine your approach, building your storytelling muscles through regular use. You can also learn by observing effective storytellers around you. When someone tells a story that captivates you, mentally note what made it work, perhaps the clear structure, the relatable emotions, the well-timed humor, or the contagious enthusiasm. These observations provide models you can adapt to your own style, not by mimicking exactly, but by understanding the principles that make their stories effective. Remember that the goal of conversational storytelling isn't to dominate the exchange, but to enhance it. Your stories should create openings for others to share their own experiences, observations, and perspectives. The best storytellers are also excellent listeners, using their narratives to build bridges rather than spotlights. As you become more comfortable with storytelling, you'll discover that it's not just a technique for making conversations more engaging. It's a way of experiencing and processing life itself. You'll begin to notice the narrative potential in everyday moments, to appreciate the humor in ordinary situations, to recognize the emotional significance of seemingly small events. This storyteller's perspective enriches not only your conversations, but your experience of living. By bringing the ancient art of storytelling into your modern interactions, you transform routine exchanges into meaningful connections. Your conversations become more memorable, more enjoyable, and more impactful. You create moments of genuine human connection in a world that often feels fragmented and superficial. And you discover the unique power of narrative to bridge differences, build understanding, and reveal our shared humanity. But as powerful as storytelling is, it represents just one dimension of truly impactful communication. There's another aspect of conversation that determines whether your words simply entertain or actually influence others' thinking and actions. This subtle yet profound quality shapes how your ideas are received, whether your suggestions are implemented, and ultimately how much positive impact you can have on the people around you. What is this invisible force that transforms mere words into catalysts for change? Let's explore the hidden dynamics that give your communication genuine influence. Chapter 8. Influence. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to effortlessly get what they want in conversations? Why their ideas are readily embraced, their requests granted, their perspectives seriously considered, even when others with similar thoughts or needs struggle to make headway? The difference often isn't what these people are saying, but how they're saying it. They've mastered a subtle art that transforms ordinary communication into something more powerful, an art that allows them to guide conversations toward positive outcomes without manipulation or force. This quality isn't about dominating others or winning arguments at any cost. In fact, the most influential communicators rarely appear to be trying to influence at all. They don't bulldoze or badger. They don't rely on authority or intimidation. Instead, they create an environment where others naturally want to consider their perspective, where resistance dissolves and collaboration flourishes. What these skilled communicators understand is that human decision-making isn't primarily logical, it's psychological. People aren't persuaded solely by facts and arguments, but by how those facts and arguments are presented, by who presents them, and by how the interaction makes them feel. By understanding these psychological dynamics, you can dramatically increase the impact of your communication while maintaining complete integrity and respect for others. In this chapter, we'll explore the principles that make communication genuinely influential. We'll examine how to express your needs and perspectives clearly while keeping others receptive. We'll discover how to frame your ideas so they resonate with what matters to your listener. And we'll learn how to navigate disagreements in ways that lead to better solutions rather than entrenched opposition. These skills apply across the spectrum of your interactions, from requesting help from a colleague to proposing a new idea in a meeting, from resolving a misunderstanding with a friend to negotiating an important agreement. Wherever you need your voice to be heard and your perspective to be valued, the principles of influence will serve you well. Let's begin by exploring the foundation of influential communication, the ability to express yourself with both clarity and respect. The power of assertive communication. At the heart of influence lies a communication style that balances two seemingly opposing qualities, directness and respect. This balance, what psychologists call assertive communication, allows you to clearly express your thoughts, feelings, and needs while maintaining positive relationships and keeping others receptive to your message. Many people struggle with this balance, defaulting instead to one of two problematic styles. Some lean toward passive communication, hinting at what they want, hoping others will read between the lines, or simply remaining silent to avoid potential conflict. Others swing to the opposite extreme with aggressive communication, stating their position forcefully, dismissing opposing views, or using language that blames or criticizes. Neither approach is effective for creating genuine influence. Passive communication leaves your needs unmet and your perspectives unheard, while aggressive communication creates resistance and damages relationships. Assertive communication offers a middle path that honors both your needs and the dignity of the other person. The first key to assertive communication is owning your perspective through I statements. When you need to express a concern, request, or opinion, begin with your own experience rather than making statements about the other person. For example, instead of, "You never listen to my ideas in meetings," you might say, "I feel frustrated when I don't get a chance to share my thoughts during our discussions." This subtle shift accomplishes several things simultaneously. It presents your perspective as your perspective, not as an objective truth the other person must accept. It focuses on specific behaviors rather than making sweeping judgments about the person's character. And perhaps most importantly, it avoids triggering the defensiveness that naturally arises when someone feels accused or attacked. I statements work because they create space for dialogue rather than debate. By explicitly framing your words as your experience or viewpoint, you invite the other person to share theirs rather than defending against yours. This openness is essential for influence. People are far more likely to consider your perspective when they don't feel their own is being dismissed. Beyond owning your perspective, assertive communication requires clarity about what you actually want or need. Many of us have been socialized to hint or downplay our requests, perhaps out of a desire to appear undemanding or to avoid potential rejection. But this indirectness often leads to confusion and unmet needs. Instead, state your requests or proposals directly. "I'd like to schedule a meeting to discuss this further." "I need more time to complete this project effectively." "I believe we should consider this alternative approach." This clarity shows respect for both yourself and the other person. You value your needs enough to express them, and you respect their time enough to be straightforward. Directness doesn't mean abruptness or lack of courtesy. The tone and manner of your communication matter enormously. Even when expressing disagreement or making a challenging request, maintain a calm, respectful tone. Avoid sarcasm, contempt, or condescension, which immediately undermine your influence by triggering emotional resistance. Your body language plays a crucial role in assertive communication as well. As we explored in Chapter 2, physical cues often speak louder than words. When expressing an important point or making a request, support your verbal message with confident nonverbal signals. Maintain appropriate eye contact, keep your posture open and upright, and speak at a volume that can be easily heard without straining. These physical cues of confidence don't just affect how others perceive you, they actually influence how you feel. By deliberately adopting the posture and expressions of confidence, you begin to experience more confidence internally, creating a positive cycle that enhances your assertiveness. The beauty of assertive communication is that it creates the conditions for genuine influence without manipulation or force. By expressing yourself clearly while maintaining respect for the other person, you establish yourself as someone whose perspective deserves consideration. Not because you've demanded it, but because you've presented it in a way that makes listening feel natural and responding positively feel rewarding. With this foundation of assertive communication established, let's explore how to frame your message in ways that resonate deeply with your listener. The art of persuasive framing. Even the most assertively expressed message may fail to influence if it doesn't connect with what matters to your listener. Persuasive framing is the art of presenting your ideas in ways that align with the other person's interests, values, and goals, making it easier for them to say yes. This approach begins with a fundamental shift in perspective. Instead of focusing primarily on what you want or why your idea makes sense to you, consider what would make it appealing or valuable to the specific person you're addressing. What are their priorities? What challenges are they facing? What outcomes do they value? With this understanding, you can frame your proposal or request in terms of benefits that matter to them. For example, if you're suggesting a new project management system to a team leader who values efficiency, you might emphasize how the system will save time and streamline workflows. If you're making the same suggestion to someone who prioritizes accuracy and quality control, you might instead focus on how the system will reduce errors and improve consistency. This isn't about manipulating or misrepresenting your idea. It's about highlighting the aspects of your proposal that genuinely align with what your listener cares about. The same idea can legitimately offer different benefits to different people, and recognizing this allows you to present your message in the most compelling way for each audience. Beyond specific benefits, people are strongly influenced by the perception of shared goals and values. When you can authentically identify and emphasize common ground, you transform the dynamic from my idea versus your idea to our shared goal and how to achieve it. Phrases like, "I think we both want," or "our common objective is," create a sense of alignment and partnership. For instance, in a discussion about project timelines, you might say, "We both want to deliver high-quality work that meets the client's expectations. I'm suggesting this adjusted timeline because I believe it will help us achieve that shared goal." This framing of common purpose is particularly powerful because it shifts the conversation from positional bargaining, where each person defends their position, to interest-based problem-solving, where you work together to satisfy underlying needs. The other person no longer sees you as an opponent to be resisted, but as a partner in achieving something you both value. Another powerful element of persuasive framing is providing clear reasons for your proposals or requests. Human psychology includes what researchers call the because heuristic, a mental shortcut that makes us more likely to comply with a request when it's accompanied by a reason, even if that reason is relatively simple. In a famous study, researchers found that people waiting to use a copy machine were much more likely to allow someone to cut in line when the request included the word because, even when the reason that followed was essentially a restatement of the request itself. "May I use the copier before you because I need to make copies?" The mere presence of a reason, signaled by that magic word because, increased compliance significantly. You can leverage this psychological principle by explicitly connecting your requests or proposals to their rationale. Instead of Could you review this report? Try, could you review this report, because your expertise in this area would help ensure we haven't missed anything important. Instead of, I think we should postpone the decision, try, I think we should postpone the decision because we need more data to make an informed choice. The reason you provide should be genuine and substantive, not manipulative or contrived. But being explicit about your reasoning, rather than assuming it's obvious, can significantly increase the persuasive impact of your communication. Supporting your points with specific examples or evidence further enhances their persuasive power. Abstract claims or general assertions are easy to dismiss. Concrete examples or data points are much harder to ignore. If you're advocating for a particular approach, briefly mention a specific instance where it worked well. If you're making a claim about trends or patterns, reference a statistic or observation that supports your point. These concrete elements make your message more credible and memorable. They transform abstract ideas into tangible realities that your listener can grasp and relate to. And they demonstrate that your perspective is grounded in something more substantial than mere opinion or preference. By combining assertive communication with persuasive framing, you create a powerful foundation for influence. But even the most skillfully expressed and framed message may encounter resistance or disagreement. How you handle these moments of potential conflict often determines whether your influence continues to grow or comes to an abrupt halt. The diplomacy of disagreement. Disagreement is inevitable in any relationship or collaboration. People have different perspectives, priorities, and information, leading naturally to different conclusions about what should be done or believed. How you navigate these differences can either enhance your influence or undermine it entirely. The most common mistake people make when facing disagreement is to immediately counter with their own perspective, essentially saying, explicitly or implicitly, "No, you're wrong, and here's why." This approach, while tempting, almost invariably increases resistance rather than reducing it. When people feel their viewpoint is being dismissed or attacked, they typically become more entrenched in their position, not less. A more effective approach begins with genuine listening. When someone expresses disagreement or raises objections to your idea, resist the urge to immediately respond. Instead, give them your full attention, seeking to understand not just their position, but the interests, concerns, or values behind it. This doesn't mean you have to agree with their perspective, but you do need to understand it if you hope to influence it. Ask clarifying questions if needed. Can you help me understand what concerns you most about this approach? Or, what aspects of this proposal don't align with your goals? These questions demonstrate respect for their viewpoint while gathering valuable information that can help you address their specific concerns. Once you've listened fully, acknowledge what you've heard before, presenting your own perspective. This acknowledgement might sound like, "I understand you're concerned about the cost implications of this project," or, "I see that you're worried this approach might create additional work for your team." This simple act of recognition shows that you've genuinely heard and valued their input, even if you ultimately propose a different direction. Remarkably, this acknowledgement alone often reduces resistance significantly. People are much more willing to consider alternative viewpoints when they feel their own perspective has been heard and respected. By demonstrating that you understand their position, you create space for them to consider yours. Even in significant disagreement, you can usually find some point of common ground or partial agreement. Perhaps you agree on the ultimate goal, but differ on how to achieve it. Maybe you share a concern, but have different ideas about how to address it. Or perhaps you can simply acknowledge the validity of their perspective given their role or responsibilities. Highlighting these areas of agreement, however small, creates a foundation for productive dialogue. It shifts the dynamic from opposition to partial alignment, making it easier to explore the areas where you differ. For example, I agree that cost is a critical factor in this decision. Where I see things differently is in the long-term savings this initial investment might create. From this foundation of listening, acknowledgement, and identified common ground, you can begin to explore solutions that address both sets of concerns. Rather than trying to convince the other person that your original proposal is perfect, consider how it might be modified to incorporate their valid points while still achieving your essential goals. This collaborative problem-solving approach might involve asking questions like, "What if we tried?" Or, "How could we address your concern about X while still achieving Y?" Or, "Is there a middle path here that would work for both of us?" These questions invite the other person to join you in finding a solution rather than continuing to defend their position against yours. Throughout this process, keep the focus on shared goals rather than disputed methods. Remind both yourself and the other person of what you're ultimately trying to achieve together. This higher-level perspective often reveals that your disagreement is less fundamental than it initially appeared. You want the same destination, but are advocating for different routes to get there. For example, in a disagreement about project timelines, you might say, "We both want to deliver excellent work that satisfies the client. You're concerned about rushing and compromising quality, while I'm worried about missing deadlines and damaging our reliability. How can we address both concerns?" This framing transforms the conversation from a win-lose debate to a collaborative problem-solving session. Sometimes, despite your best efforts, emotions may run high in a disagreement. When you notice this happening, whether in yourself or the other person, it may be wise to suggest a pause. A simple, "I think we both care deeply about this issue. Maybe we should take some time to reflect and continue this conversation tomorrow," acknowledges the importance of the topic while creating space for emotions to settle. This isn't avoiding the disagreement, it's creating conditions where it can be resolved more productively. Research shows that when we're emotionally activated, our cognitive abilities, particularly those related to creative problem-solving and perspective-taking, are significantly diminished. A strategic pause allows both parties to return to the conversation with clearer thinking and less emotional reactivity. By approaching disagreement with this diplomatic mindset, listening before responding, acknowledging before proposing, finding common ground, and collaboratively problem-solving, you transform potential conflicts into opportunities for deeper understanding and better solutions. Rather than diminishing your influence, skillfully handled disagreement can actually enhance it, demonstrating your commitment to mutual respect and shared success. The ethics of influence. As you develop your skills of influence, it's important to maintain a clear ethical framework for their use. Influence without ethics can easily become manipulation, getting others to do what you want without regard for their best interests or autonomy. True influence, as we've explored it in this chapter, is fundamentally ethical because it's based on mutual benefit and respect. You're not trying to trick or coerce others into compliance. You're presenting your ideas in ways that highlight genuine value for them. You're not dismissing or steamrolling opposing viewpoints. You're seeking to understand them and find common ground. You're not exploiting psychological principles to bypass rational thought. You're using them to enhance communication and collaboration. This ethical approach to influence creates sustainable results. When people feel respected and valued in an interaction, when they see how your proposal benefits them, when they've been genuinely heard and included in the solution, they don't just comply momentarily, they buy in authentically, bringing their full engagement and creativity to the implementation. Moreover, ethical influence builds your reputation over time. People come to see you as someone who communicates honestly, considers others' perspectives, and seeks mutual benefit. This reputation itself becomes a source of influence. Others are more likely to listen to and trust someone with a history of respectful, beneficial interactions. The skills we've explored in this chapter, assertive communication, persuasive framing, and diplomatic handling of disagreement, are powerful tools. Like any tools, they can be used for various purposes. By consciously choosing to use them in service of mutual understanding and shared success, you not only increase your effectiveness, but contribute to a more collaborative and productive environment for everyone involved. The ongoing journey of influence. Developing influential communication is not a destination, but a journey, one that continues throughout your personal and professional life. Each conversation becomes an opportunity to practice these skills, to refine your approach based on what works in specific contexts with specific people. As you continue this journey, remember that influence is not about perfection. You won't always find exactly the right words or perfectly balance assertiveness with respect. You won't always anticipate every objection or find the ideal framing for every proposal. And that's okay. What matters is your commitment to the principles, to expressing yourself clearly while respecting others, to seeking mutual benefit, to handling disagreement with diplomacy and openness. With practice, these approaches become less conscious techniques and more natural habits, your default way of communicating rather than strategies you have to deliberately implement. You'll find yourself automatically considering others' perspectives, naturally framing ideas in terms of shared benefits, and instinctively listening before responding to disagreement. This evolution toward natural, habitual influence doesn't diminish its power, it enhances it. The most influential communicators are those whose skill appears effortless, who create alignment and agreement without obvious technique or manipulation. They're simply people who consistently communicate in ways that make others want to listen, consider, and collaborate. By developing these skills of influence, you transform not just your conversations, but your impact in the world. Your ideas receive the consideration they deserve. Your needs are more consistently met. Your collaborations become more productive and satisfying, and your relationships, both personal and professional, become stronger through mutual respect and shared success. But as powerful as influence is within individual conversations, there's another dimension of communication that extends your impact beyond the immediate interaction. This dimension allows you to build a web of connections that amplifies your voice, creates opportunities, and provides support throughout your personal and professional journey. What is this extended realm of communication that transforms isolated conversations into a network of meaningful relationships? Let's explore the art of turning momentary connections into lasting and valuable associations. Chapter 9: Networking. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to know everyone? They're the ones who always have a friend who can help with whatever situation arises. Need a recommendation for a specialist? They know someone. Looking for a particular opportunity? They have a contact. Facing a challenge in an unfamiliar field? They can introduce you to an expert. These well-connected individuals aren't just lucky. They've mastered an essential dimension of communication that extends far beyond individual conversations. They understand that each interaction has the potential to become something more lasting, a connection that can be maintained, deepened, and activated when needed. This dimension of communication is often called networking, but that term can conjure images of awkward events where people exchange business cards and deliver rehearsed elevator pitches. The reality is both simpler and more profound. What we're really talking about is the art of building and maintaining meaningful relationships. Connections that enrich your life professionally and personally while allowing you to contribute value to others. Throughout this book, we've explored the skills that make individual conversations successful, from making strong first impressions to listening actively, from speaking clearly to building rapport, from projecting confidence to telling engaging stories, from influencing outcomes to handling disagreements. These skills create the foundation for effective communication in any single interaction. But the true power of masterful conversation emerges when you extend these skills beyond isolated exchanges, when you transform one-time conversations into ongoing relationships that form a network of connections around you. This network becomes a source of opportunities, support, knowledge, and joy that can transform your life in ways both expected and surprising. Let's explore how to build and nurture this web of connections, starting with the most fundamental step: expanding your circle of acquaintances and potential friends. The art of meeting new people. Every significant relationship in your life began with a first meeting, a moment when you and another person were strangers, then became acquaintances. While some of these initial connections happen by chance, you can dramatically increase their frequency and quality by being intentional about putting yourself in environments where meaningful connections are likely to form. The most obvious opportunities are structured networking events, professional conferences, or industry gatherings where people explicitly come together to connect. These settings have the advantage of clear purpose. Everyone is there, at least in part, to meet others. But meaningful connections can form in many other contexts. Social gatherings hosted by friends, community volunteer opportunities, classes or workshops related to your interests, or even regular visits to local establishments where you begin to recognize familiar faces. The key is regular participation in environments where you encounter new people who potentially share some common interest or goal. Each of these settings creates natural conversation starters, the event itself, the shared activity, or the common interest that brought you both there. These built-in topics make initial conversations easier to begin and sustain. When you find yourself in these environments, your body language becomes your first tool for connection. The principles we explored in Chapter 2 are particularly important here. Maintaining an open posture, making friendly eye contact, and offering a genuine smile creates an approachable presence that invites interaction. People are naturally drawn to those who appear warm and receptive, while they tend to avoid those who seem closed off or unapproachable. Beyond being approachable, don't hesitate to be the one who initiates conversation. Many people feel anxious about approaching strangers, so by taking that first step, you're often doing both of you a favor. A simple comment about the event, the speaker made some interesting points, didn't she? A friendly question, is this your first time at one of these gatherings? Or even just a warm introduction. Hi, I'm your name. I don't think we've met before. Can open the door to conversation. This proactive approach is particularly valuable when you notice someone standing alone or looking uncomfortable. By approaching them with warmth and interest, you not only potentially make a new connection, but also create a positive experience for someone who might be feeling out of place. This kindness is often remembered and appreciated, creating goodwill from the very beginning of your interaction. Your existing connections can be powerful gateways to new relationships as well. When attending an event with friends or colleagues, ask them to introduce you to people they know, but you don't. These warm introductions come with an implicit endorsement from your mutual connection, creating immediate common ground and a sense of trust that might take much longer to establish with a completely cold introduction. Similarly, if you learn that someone in your existing network knows a person you'd like to connect with, perhaps someone in a field you're interested in, or who has expertise you could benefit from, don't hesitate to ask for an introduction. Most people are happy to connect friends or colleagues who might benefit from knowing each other. When making such a request, be clear about why you want to meet the person and how you think the connection might be mutually beneficial. In today's digital world, networking extends beyond in-person interactions. Professional platforms like LinkedIn, industry-specific forums, and even thoughtfully used social media can help you establish initial connections with people you might later meet in person. When reaching out online, personalization is crucial. Mention specifically why you're interested in connecting and reference something that indicates you've taken the time to learn a bit about them rather than sending generic requests. Whether online or in person, the goal of these initial interactions isn't to immediately establish deep relationships, but to create openings for potential connections to develop. Some will naturally evolve into more significant relationships. Others will remain casual acquaintances. Both have value in a well-rounded network. The important thing is to consistently create opportunities for these initial meetings to occur. As you expand your circle of connections, remember that quality ultimately matters more than quantity. A smaller network of genuine relationships will serve you better than a larger collection of superficial contacts. The next crucial step, then, is transforming those initial meetings into memorable connections that have the potential to develop further. The power of following up. Have you ever had a great conversation with someone at an event, felt a genuine connection, and then never spoken to them again? This common experience represents one of the biggest missed opportunities in networking. Without follow-up, even the most promising initial connections often fade from memory, their potential unrealized. The difference between a one-time pleasant exchange and the beginning of a meaningful relationship often comes down to what happens after that first conversation ends. Taking the initiative to ensure the connection continues beyond your initial meeting is what transforms strangers into acquaintances and acquaintances into actual relationships. This process begins before you even part ways from that first conversation. If you've enjoyed talking with someone and see potential value in maintaining contact, take the simple but crucial step of exchanging contact information. This might mean trading business cards, connecting on LinkedIn, or simply exchanging phone numbers or email addresses. The way you suggest this exchange matters. Rather than the generic, "we should stay in touch," try something more specific that references your conversation. "I'd love to continue our discussion about topic you discussed. Could I get your email?" Or, "You mentioned you're also interested in shared interest. Let's connect on LinkedIn and maybe grab coffee sometime." This specificity shows that you were genuinely engaged in the conversation and have a real interest in continuing the connection. Once you have their contact information, the next critical step is reaching out while your conversation is still fresh in both your minds. Waiting too long allows the positive impression you made to fade and can make your eventual outreach seem less genuine. Ideally, follow up within 24 to 48 hours of your initial meeting. This follow-up doesn't need to be elaborate. A simple message referencing your conversation and expressing pleasure at having met them is sufficient. For example, "Hi, Name. It was great meeting you at event yesterday. I really enjoyed our conversation about specific topic you discussed. I'd love to stay in touch and perhaps continue the discussion sometime." Including a specific reference to your conversation serves several purposes. It jogs their memory if they met many people at the event. It shows that you were genuinely engaged and remember what you talked about. And it creates continuity between your in-person interaction and this digital follow-up, making the connection feel more substantial. Depending on the nature of your initial conversation and the potential you see in the relationship, you might include something more in this follow-up. Perhaps an article related to a topic you discussed, information about an event they might be interested in, or even a suggestion for meeting again if that seems appropriate. These additions provide value and create a natural reason for further interaction. While this initial follow-up is crucial, building meaningful connections requires ongoing attention. For relationships you want to develop, find ways to stay periodically in touch without being intrusive. This might mean occasional comments on their social media posts, congratulatory messages for professional achievements you notice, or sharing information or opportunities relevant to their interests. These light touches maintain awareness and goodwill without demanding significant time or creating obligation. They show that you remember and value the person even when you don't need anything specific from them, an essential foundation for genuine relationship building. For connections you find particularly valuable or enjoyable, more substantial check-ins might be appropriate. A message like, "It's been a while since we caught up. Would you be interested in grabbing coffee sometime in the next few weeks?" expresses genuine interest in maintaining the relationship while respecting the other person's agency in responding. As your network grows, keeping track of your connections becomes increasingly important. While this might sound calculating, it's actually a way of showing respect and consideration for the people you've met. A simple system, whether a digital contact manager, a spreadsheet, or even just notes in your phone, can help you remember important details about your connections. Their interests, what you've discussed, any significant events they've mentioned, and when you last interacted. This information allows you to follow up in meaningful ways. Remembering that someone mentioned an upcoming job interview or project deadline and checking in about how it went shows thoughtfulness that distinguishes your interaction from generic networking. Similarly, noting shared interests or experiences gives you natural topics for future conversations, making your interactions more enjoyable and authentic for both of you. The goal of all this follow-up isn't just to maintain contact, but to gradually deepen connections with those where mutual interest and value exist. Some relationships will naturally evolve into friendships or close professional relationships. Others will remain more casual, but still meaningful connections. Both have their place in a healthy network. The key is being intentional about nurturing the connections that matter to you rather than letting them fade through neglect. With consistent follow-up, establishing ongoing connections, the next step is learning how to both provide and receive value through your network, transforming it from a collection of contacts into a dynamic ecosystem of mutual support and opportunity. The currency of mutual value. At its core, a thriving network operates on a simple principle: mutual value exchange. People maintain connections with those who enhance their lives in some way, whether through practical assistance, emotional support, intellectual stimulation, or simply enjoyable interaction. Understanding and embracing this reality doesn't make networking transactional. It makes it sustainable and genuinely beneficial for everyone involved. The most powerful way to strengthen your network is to consistently provide value to others without immediate expectation of return. This value can take many forms, depending on the nature of the relationship and the needs or interests of the other person. One of the simplest yet most appreciated forms of value is information sharing. When you come across an article, event announcement, or opportunity that would interest someone in your network, taking a moment to share it with them creates several positive outcomes. It provides them with potentially useful information, demonstrates that you remember and understand their interests, and creates a natural reason for interaction without demanding much of their time. More direct forms of assistance can be even more impactful. If someone in your network mentions they're looking for a particular resource, facing a challenge you have experience with, or seeking opportunities in an area where you have connections, offering specific help can significantly strengthen your relationship. This might mean making an introduction, sharing your expertise, or even just offering encouragement during a difficult time. One particularly valuable way to help others is by making thoughtful connections within your network. When you realize that two people you know could benefit from knowing each other, perhaps because they have complementary skills, shared interests, or could collaborate on a project, facilitating that introduction creates value for both parties while positioning you as a valuable connector. When making such introductions, respect everyone's time and agency. A message like, "Would you be interested in being introduced to my colleague who specializes in the area you mentioned you're exploring?" gives the person a chance to decline if the timing isn't right. Similarly, checking with the person you want to introduce them to ensures both parties are open to the connection before you make it. Beyond these specific forms of assistance, simply being a supportive presence in others' lives creates significant value. Celebrating their successes, offering encouragement during challenges, and showing genuine interest in their journey builds goodwill and deepens connection. A quick message of congratulations when someone shares good news or a note of support when they're facing difficulties takes little time but can mean a great deal. As you consistently provide value to others, you'll find that many naturally reciprocate, offering assistance, sharing opportunities, or making introductions that benefit you. This reciprocity isn't the goal of your generosity, but it is a natural outcome in healthy relationships. Over time, this mutual exchange creates a network where support and opportunity flow in multiple directions, benefiting everyone involved. When you do need something from your network, whether it's information, an introduction, or other assistance, don't hesitate to ask clearly and specifically. People who have experienced your generosity are usually happy to help when they can, but they need to know what you need. Vague requests like, "Let me know if you hear of any opportunities," are less likely to yield results than specific ones like, "I'm looking for a position in specific field. If you know anyone hiring in that area, I'd greatly appreciate an introduction." Throughout this process of giving and receiving value, maintaining trust is essential. This means following through on commitments, respecting confidentiality when appropriate, and being honest about what you can and cannot do. Trust is the foundation upon which all meaningful relationships are built, and once damaged, it can be difficult to restore. Reliability in small matters builds confidence that you'll be reliable in larger ones. If you promise to send someone information or make an introduction, do so promptly. If you suggest meeting for coffee, follow through with scheduling. These seemingly minor acts of follow-through accumulate to create a reputation for dependability that makes people more likely to trust you with more significant matters. Equally important is avoiding overcommitment. It's better to honestly say, "I'm not sure I can help with that right now, but I'll keep it in mind," than to promise assistance you can't deliver. People generally respect honesty about limitations and appreciate not being left waiting for help that never materializes. Expressing gratitude is another crucial element of maintaining healthy network relationships. When someone helps you, whether through information, an introduction, or direct assistance, acknowledge their contribution with specific thanks. "I really appreciate you connecting me with Sarah. Our conversation was incredibly helpful," is more meaningful than a generic, "Thanks for your help." This appreciation isn't just polite, it's reinforcing. People are more likely to help those who genuinely value and acknowledge their assistance. By expressing specific gratitude, you increase the likelihood of future support while also strengthening the relationship through positive interaction. As your network grows and evolves, remember that its value isn't measured by size, but by quality, the depth of trust, the genuineness of connections, and the mutual benefit that flows through your relationships. A smaller network of authentic, supportive relationships will serve you better than a larger collection of superficial contacts who feel no real connection or commitment to your success. The lifelong impact of meaningful connections. The network you build through these practices becomes far more than a professional asset or social convenience. Research consistently shows that our relationships are among the most significant determinants of our overall well-being, happiness, and even health throughout our lives. The famous Harvard study of adult development, which has followed participants for over 80 years, found that the quality of people's relationships was the strongest predictor of both happiness and physical health in later life, more significant than wealth, fame, social class, or genetic factors. Those with strong social connections lived longer, healthier lives and reported greater satisfaction and fulfillment. This finding highlights a profound truth. The communication skills we've explored throughout this book aren't just tools for professional success or social ease. They're the building blocks of the connections that will sustain and enrich your entire life journey. The network you cultivate becomes a source of diverse benefits that extend far beyond the obvious professional advantages. It provides emotional support during challenges, offering perspective, encouragement, and sometimes just a sympathetic ear when you're facing difficulties. It creates access to diverse knowledge and expertise, allowing you to learn and grow in ways that would be impossible in isolation. It offers different perspectives that challenge your thinking and broaden your understanding of the world. It creates a sense of belonging and community that satisfies our fundamental human need for connection. It opens doors to unexpected opportunities that you might never have discovered on your own. And perhaps most importantly, it gives you the chance to contribute meaningfully to others' lives, to help, support, and enhance their journey just as they enhance yours. This reciprocal enhancement is the true essence of networking, not the stereotypical exchange of business cards or collection of LinkedIn connections, but the genuine human connections that allow us to support each other, learn from each other, and grow together. The skills we've explored throughout this book, from making strong first impressions to active listening, from clear speaking to building rapport, from projecting confidence to telling engaging stories, from influencing outcomes to handling disagreements, all serve this ultimate purpose. They help you create and nurture the connections that will form the fabric of your life's experience. As you move forward from these pages, I encourage you to practice these skills not as isolated techniques, but as integrated elements of authentic human connection. Use them not to manipulate or impress, but to genuinely understand others and be understood by them. Apply them not just in formal networking contexts, but in everyday interactions with colleagues, friends, family members, and new acquaintances. Remember that mastering conversation isn't about perfection, but about presence. Being fully engaged with the person before you, listening with genuine curiosity, speaking with clarity and warmth, and approaching each interaction as an opportunity for meaningful connection. With consistent practice and genuine intention, you'll find that the ability to talk to anyone becomes more than just a skill. It becomes a natural expression of who you are. Conversations transform from potential sources of anxiety to opportunities for discovery and connection. Your network evolves from a collection of contacts to a community of meaningful relationships, and your life becomes richer through the diverse perspectives, support, and opportunities that flow through these connections. The journey to conversational mastery is ongoing. There is always more to learn, more skills to refine, more depths of connection to explore. But with the foundations established in these chapters, you have everything you need to begin or continue this journey with confidence and purpose. So take these principles into your next conversation. Approach it with curiosity and openness. Listen deeply, speak clearly, find common ground, share authentically. And remember that in each interaction lies the potential for something meaningful, a moment of genuine human connection, the beginning of a valuable relationship, or simply the satisfaction of communicating in a way that honors both yourself and the other person. In a world where digital communication often replaces face-to-face interaction and superficial exchanges frequently substitute for meaningful dialogue, your ability to create genuine connection through conversation becomes increasingly valuable, not just for what it might help you achieve, but for the quality of experience it creates in your daily life. This, ultimately, is the greatest reward of mastering the art of talking to anyone, not just the doors it opens or the opportunities it creates, but the richness it brings to your journey through a life lived in meaningful connection with others. Yet, even as you develop these conversational abilities, you may notice there's still a gap between knowing what to do and seamlessly executing these skills in challenging social situations. Why do some interactions still feel awkward despite your best efforts? The answer lies in the subtle nuances of social dynamics that go beyond basic conversation techniques. These advanced social skills transform mere communication into true artistry, allowing you to navigate any social situation with grace and authenticity. Discover these essential strategies in the audiobook Social Skills 101, From Awkward to Artful. Your next step toward becoming not just a competent conversationalist, but a masterful architect of meaningful human connection. Tap the center of the video now to continue your transformation journey.